Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff at midnight, the sky above you heavy with stars, their ancient light streaming down across millennia, touching your eyes as though no time had passed. That starlight is millions of years old, a message from the distant past, and yet here it is, alive, immediate, radiant in this very moment. What does that mean? Is it merely an echo, a faded memory of something long gone? Or is it proof that the past is not dead at all, that somewhere, somehow, the past is still happening, unfolding with the same intensity as the present you feel now? This is the question that fractures our understanding of time, the question that haunts philosophers, scientists, and dreamers alike. What if nothing ever ends? What if every moment persists forever, hidden beyond our reach but still alive? We think of time as a relentless march, a river dragging us forward, carrying our lives like leaves toward the unknown sea of the future. Yet what if this image is wrong? What if time is not a river, not a line, but a vast terrain where every step we've taken still exists behind us? Every laugh, every tragedy, every whisper frozen like carvings in stone. Imagine walking through a forest and believing that as soon as you pass a tree, it vanishes into nothingness. Absurd. The trees remain behind you, as real as the ones ahead. Could time be the same? Could yesterday still be standing right behind us, eternal, untouched, continuing without our awareness? Close your eyes and think of an ancient city, Athens in its glory, its streets echoing with voices of philosophers, the marketplace alive with barter and laughter, the marble temples glowing in the sun. We say it happened 2,000 years ago. We say it is gone. But what if it isn't? What if, right now, in a dimension beyond our senses, those voices still rise in the air, those footsteps still strike the stone roads, and Socrates himself is still walking, still questioning, still alive in his moment, unaware that to us his world has become ruins? The thought is intoxicating, terrifying, almost unbearable in its implication. Nothing ends, nothing fades, and the past is not behind us but beside us, waiting. Science tells us light takes time to travel. Look at the sun, and you see it as it was 8 minutes ago. Look at a star, and you see it as it was centuries or millennia ago. The deeper you look into space, the further back in time you are seeing, until telescopes become not machines of astronomy but time machines, windows into an ancient universe still burning, still expanding. If we can see it, is it truly gone? If we can measure the past with our eyes, is it still happening, still alive somewhere in the eternal structure of reality? This question is not merely scientific. It is deeply human. Think of the people you have lost, the moments you ache to relive, the seconds you wish you could stop from slipping away. What if those moments never slipped at all? What if your childhood laughter still echoes, if your first love is still unfolding in a shimmering, eternal instant? If your grandparents are still sitting at a table somewhere in the hidden architecture of time? If every joy and every wound continues endlessly, then our lives are not lines but constellations, every star a moment burning forever, connected in ways our minds can scarcely imagine. But the question has a darker side. If every joy endures, then so too does every sorrow. Every war still rages, every tragedy is still mid-breath, every scream of pain never ended. Does that mean history is a wound that never closes? Do we live in a universe where Auschwitz is still burning, where Hiroshima is still falling, where battles and betrayals and losses still unfold eternally in unseen corridors of time? To believe the past still exists is to accept both eternal beauty and eternal horror, a universe of endless awe and endless suffering, stretching out like twin shadows across infinity. And yet the idea keeps returning, unshaken by centuries of thought. Physics itself hints at it. Equations do not speak of flowing time, only of coordinates fixed in a grand cosmic structure. The laws of nature do not distinguish between past, present, and future. They treat them all as equally real. It is only our perception, our fragile consciousness, that insists on carving a now and pushing everything else away. Could it be that our minds are too limited, too bound by survival, to grasp the timeless truth of existence? Could it be that the ticking of the clock, the rising of the sun, the graying of our hair are illusions born of entropy and perception, not the destruction of the past? There are moments when this possibility presses close, almost tangible. Déjà vu, the uncanny feeling that you have lived a moment before. Dreams where you walk through worlds that feel familiar yet impossible. Strange slips where time feels stretched, slowed, suspended, as if reality itself hesitated. We dismiss them as tricks of the brain. But what if they are whispers, echoes from beyond the prison of now, hints that time is not what we think? What if those fleeting sensations are the soul brushing against another corridor of reality, glimpsing the eternal? Standing again beneath the stars, you wonder, are they looking back? When you gaze at a star 1,000 light-years away, you see it as it was 1,000 years ago. In that moment, your present collides with its past, 2 times meeting in one gaze. Could someone, somewhere, be looking back at Earth, seeing not us but the Middle Ages, the rise and fall of empires, the sweep of history still alive? If so, then the past is not behind us but everywhere, woven into the very fabric of the cosmos, a silent theater unfolding beyond perception. The question that breaks time is not simply whether the past is gone. It is whether our very understanding of existence is built on illusion. What if we are not travelers moving through time but prisoners locked into one narrow corridor, blind to the infinite chambers all around? What if, right now, as you breathe, as your heart beats, you are not just in this present moment but coexisting with every moment you have ever lived and every moment that ever was? The universe becomes not a story but a library, every page eternally inscribed, every word still being spoken. And if that is true, then the past is not past at all. It is still happening, waiting, breathing, eternal. From the moment human beings first looked at the rising and setting of the sun, we have been haunted by the mystery of time. The earliest people did not have words for gravity or relativity, but they felt time in their bones. They watched the seasons change, the rains come and go, the harvests rise and fall. They buried their dead and returned later to find only bones. From these raw observations, humanity's obsession began, a desperate need to measure, control, and understand the invisible force that seemed to carry life forward, whether we wished it or not. Time was the first god, the silent deity to which every culture bent. Imagine the first marks carved into stone, tallying the phases of the moon. Picture ancient farmers standing in fields, tracking the shadow of a stick as it moved across the ground, inventing the sundial. To them, this was magic, a way to grasp the ungraspable. Every notch, every shadow, every rhythmic beat was a victory over chaos, a way to believe that time could be caught, named, and perhaps even commanded. But behind every measurement lay fear, the fear of not knowing how long the sun would shine, the fear of wasting precious days, the fear of death's approach. Our obsession was not born of curiosity alone, it was born of dread. In temples and myths, time was personified as gods and monsters. The Greeks gave us Kronos, the devourer who swallowed his own children because nothing escapes the hunger of time. The Hindus imagined vast cosmic cycles, endless yugas stretching across billions of years, where time was not a line but a wheel, spinning endlessly, crushing worlds beneath its turn. The Egyptians tied their concept of eternity to the unending rebirth of Ra, the sun god, dying each night and resurrecting each dawn. Every culture created stories because no measurement was enough. Humanity needed more than numbers. It needed meaning. And yet, measurement advanced. The sundial became the water clock, dripping with relentless regularity. The water clock became the hourglass, grains slipping away like moments of life itself. The hourglass gave way to mechanical clocks in the towers of medieval Europe, gears grinding against gears, bells tolling to remind entire towns of the passing hour. With every step, our obsession grew more precise, more demanding. The clock no longer served life. Life began to serve the clock. Bells told peasants when to pray, when to work, when to rest. Time had been domesticated, tamed, chained into units. But had it truly been captured? Or had we simply built better cages for our own fear? Imagine a monk in the 14th century, winding the gears of a cathedral clock, believing he is aligning humanity with the divine order of the universe. Imagine a sailor in the 18th century, glancing at his marine chronometer, knowing his survival depends on exact minutes to find longitude in a vast ocean. Imagine a factory worker in the 19th century, watching a foreman's watch dictate the rhythm of his labor, the hours stretched or shortened not by the sun but by the machinery of industry. Each age reveals the same truth. Time became not just a background but the ruler of human life. Our obsession had transformed into surrender. Then came science. The 20th century brought us atomic clocks, measuring time not by sand, water, or gears, but by the vibrations of cesium atoms pulsing billions of times per second with unimaginable precision. Humanity now claims to measure time so exactly that even the rotation of the Earth itself is too imprecise, too sloppy to keep pace. We add leap seconds to our calendars because the cosmos cannot match the perfection of our machines. What does this reveal? That our obsession has not lessened, only deepened. We no longer measure time to till our fields or guide our ships. We measure it to send spacecraft across the void, to synchronize the internet, to regulate global commerce, to map our very existence in a digital world. The heartbeat of civilization itself now depends on the ticking of invisible atomic rhythms. And yet, beneath this mastery, the old fear still lingers. Ask anyone, anywhere, what is time? The answers collapse. Is it a flow, a sequence, an arrow, an illusion? Our machines give us numbers, but not meaning. Our clocks tell us when, but never why. This is the paradox of our obsession. The more precisely we measure, the less we seem to understand. Perhaps that is why we cling to rituals, birthdays, anniversaries, calendars filled with cycles of remembrance. We light candles on cakes, count years since we lost someone, celebrate New Year's with fireworks and shouts. These are not simply markers. They are attempts to humanize time, to soften its edges, to make the incomprehensible passage of existence feel like something we can hold in our hands. But beneath the joy of celebration lies the same uneasy whisper. Every candle blown out is a candle closer to the end. And so the question grows darker. What if our obsession blinds us to the truth? What if, in carving time into seconds, minutes, and hours, we have mistaken the shadow for the thing itself? We treat time as a ruler we invented, yet we forget that the ruler is not the landscape. Our devices tick, our calendars turn, but what exactly are they measuring? Are they capturing reality or merely our perception of it? The more we refine, the more hollow it feels, as if we are chasing smoke, building monuments to something that may not even exist as we believe. Picture yourself watching a clock. The second hand moves forward, steady, unrelenting. But is the universe moving with it? Or is the hand simply circling a dial, an illusion of control over something immeasurable? Our ancestors once bowed before time as a god. Now we bow before it as a machine. But the mystery remains untouched, the obsession unbroken. The river of days carries us forward, and we clutch at numbers, calendars, and schedules, pretending we are steering. And yet, deep inside, we know. We feel it in our quietest hours, in the stillness of night when no clock is ticking and no calendar looms. We sense that time is not what we think, that our obsession has not revealed its truth but hidden it. We measure endlessly because we fear endlessly. We build clocks because we cannot face eternity. And so the obsession continues, relentless as the ticking hand, pushing us toward the next revelation, the next fracture, the next haunting possibility that time is not flowing, not vanishing, not ours to command at all. In the early years of the 20th century, the world thought it understood time. Newton's universe reigned supreme, a grand clockwork, vast and orderly, ticking away with absolute precision. According to Newton, time was universal. It flowed evenly everywhere, steady and unchanging, indifferent to motion or matter. A second on Earth was the same as a second in the stars. The laws of nature depended on this certainty. For centuries, philosophers, scientists, and ordinary people built their lives around this unquestioned truth. Time was the one constant, the stage upon which reality unfolded. But then came a young man with untidy hair, working in a patent office in Switzerland. Albert Einstein was not yet famous, not yet the icon of genius he would become. He was, at that time, simply a man with relentless curiosity and a refusal to accept what others took for granted. He asked questions that seemed absurd, even childish. What would happen if you could chase a beam of light? What would it feel like to ride alongside it? These thought experiments were not idle fantasies. They were revolutions disguised as daydreams, seeds of ideas that would forever change how humanity understood time. In 1905, Einstein published a paper that shattered the foundations of physics. Special relativity revealed that time was not absolute but relative, woven together with space into a single entity called spacetime. Imagine the shock. Centuries of certainty dissolved in a single insight. No longer was there a universal ticking clock shared by all observers. Instead, time itself bent and stretched depending on speed. The faster you moved, the slower your time flowed compared to those at rest. This was not metaphor. This was reality, proven by mathematics and later confirmed by experiment. A twin who traveled near the speed of light and returned would be younger than the twin who stayed behind. Time, the eternal constant, was suddenly flexible, subjective, strange. Picture two trains rushing past each other in the night. To one passenger, lightning strikes the front and back of the train at the same moment. To the observer standing on the ground, those strikes happen at different times. Both are correct. Both are real. Einstein had revealed a universe where simultaneity itself, what it means for two events to happen at the same time, was no longer absolute. The idea was dizzying. If even now depended on perspective, then what was the past? What was the future? Were these divisions merely illusions created by limited vantage points? Einstein's revelations grew deeper in 1915 when he expanded his theory into the general theory of relativity. Space and time were no longer rigid containers but a fabric, a living stage that bent under the weight of matter and energy. Planets curved this fabric, and that curvature was what we experienced as gravity. Time itself slowed down in the presence of massive objects. The stronger the gravity, the slower the time. This meant that time did not flow evenly across the universe. A clock ticking near a black hole runs more slowly than a clock far away in empty space. The cosmos was not a single universal rhythm. It was a symphony of shifting tempos, each region playing its own strange measure. Think of the implications. Imagine standing at the edge of a black hole. To you, your heart beats normally, your seconds feel the same. But to a distant observer, you are frozen, moving slower and slower as you approach the event horizon, time dragging into eternity. For you, a second might pass. For them, eons might unfold. Who is correct? Well, this was Einstein's gift and curse to humanity, to show us that time is not a simple flow but a malleable dimension, inseparable from space, shaped by speed and gravity. The philosophical consequences were staggering. If time could bend, stretch, and warp, then the comforting picture of a universal present collapsed. Past and future might not vanish into nothingness after all, but continue to exist in the vast fabric of spacetime. Many physicists began to imagine the block universe, where every moment, yesterday, today, tomorrow, exist together, laid out like a grand cosmic map. In such a universe, the past is still there, the future is already real, and the present is merely the slice we happen to experience. If this is true, then every laugh you ever shared, every tear you ever shed, every battle ever fought, every empire ever risen and fallen, they all still exist, eternal coordinates in the architecture of spacetime. Einstein himself resisted some of the more mystical interpretations, but his equations were indifferent to human comfort. They suggested a reality far stranger than our instincts could handle. Time was not absolute, not universal, not simple. It was a dimension, elastic and malleable, inseparably tied to the structure of the cosmos. The universe was not a stage upon which time passed, but a vast four-dimensional continuum in which time was part of the scenery itself. Experiments would prove his vision right. In 1971, physicists flew atomic clocks around the world on jet planes. When compared to identical clocks left on the ground, the flying clocks showed measurable differences. Time had flowed differently for them. Today, GPS satellites orbiting Earth must constantly correct their clocks to account for relativity. Without it, your phone's navigation would be hopelessly inaccurate within minutes. Every time you follow a map on your screen, you are living in Einstein's universe, a world where time itself is flexible. But beyond the practical, the haunting question remains: what does this mean for the past? If time is a dimension, then the past is not gone but a place, a region still existing in the tapestry of spacetime. Imagine walking through a landscape. Behind you lie valleys you have crossed. In front of you, mountains still to climb. Do the valleys vanish when you turn away? Of course not. They remain solid and real, even if you never return. Could time be the same? Are our yesterdays still standing, unbroken, just beyond the horizon of our perception? Einstein himself once wrote to the family of a dying friend, "For us believing physicists, the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion." This was not poetry but the echo of his equations. If he was right, then the past is not dead, the future is not unborn, and the present is not unique. They are all woven into the fabric, eternal, waiting. And yet, even as Einstein unlocked this profound truth, a paradox lingered. If the past is still there, why can we not return? If the future is real, why can we not see it? If all time exists, why do we feel trapped in this endless march of now? Relativity had shattered the old certainty but offered no comfort. It revealed a universe stranger, vaster, more unsettling than any before. The river of time had become a landscape, and we were left with the unnerving realization that perhaps we are not flowing forward at all. We are standing in one place, blinded to the eternal expanse surrounding us. Einstein's revelation was not just scientific. It was existential. It forced us to confront the possibility that our deepest intuitions about life and death, about beginnings and endings, about presence and absence, might be illusions. We cling to the idea that time sweeps away the past, that our losses are gone, our mistakes erased, our victories faded. But relativity whispers something different, something both beautiful and terrifying. The past is still there. Somewhere in the fabric of spacetime, your first breath is still being drawn, your first step is still being taken, your last goodbye is still being spoken. Everything you have ever lived is eternal, unvanished, stitched into the cosmic design. The question now is not whether time is absolute, but whether we can endure the truth of its relativity. If Einstein was right, then the past is not behind us but all around us, eternal, unyielding, alive. For most of history, we imagine time as a river. It begins at a source, flows endlessly forward, and disappears into the sea of the future. The metaphor feels natural. We are born, we grow, we age, we die. The current never reverses, and no matter how we thrash, we are carried along. The image is comforting in its simplicity. But what if it is wrong? What if time is not a river at all, but a vast and unmoving landscape? Imagine standing on a mountain peak, gazing out across valleys, hills, and plains. Every feature exists at once. Some are far behind you, others ahead, but all are there simultaneously, carved into the land. This is the radical vision of the block universe. Time as a whole, complete, unchanging, a frozen terrain in which every moment, past, present, and future, coexists eternally. The implications are staggering. If this view is true, then your birth has not vanished into oblivion. It still exists, a coordinate in the grand fabric of spacetime, just as real as this moment. The laughter of your childhood, the heartbreak of your teenage years, the faces of those who loved you, all of them are still there, etched into the block like features of a canyon. They may not be accessible to you, but they have not ceased to exist. They are eternal monuments, silent and unyielding within the geometry of reality. The same is true for the future. Your death is not something that will one day arrive. It already exists in the landscape, waiting as unchangeable as the mountain ahead of you. This is not destiny in the mystical sense, but inevitability in the physical one. Consider the dissonance between this vision and our daily lives. We experience time as flowing, each moment replaced by the next. We believe the past is gone, the future unborn, and only the present is real. The block universe tells us otherwise. All moments exist equally. The distinction between now and then is an illusion created by consciousness, like a flashlight sweeping across a painting. The painting does not move, does not change. Only the light does. In the same way, the universe is not moving through time. It is time. We are simply experiencing one slice at a time. The metaphor grows deeper. Imagine a film reel. Each frame exists, already etched onto celluloid. When the film is projected, we perceive motion, change, progress. But nothing is truly changing. Each frame is fixed, eternal, complete. Our lives, too, may be frames within the grand reel of spacetime. We feel ourselves moving forward, but perhaps nothing is moving at all. Perhaps the universe is a finished work, every scene already written, every moment already etched, every ending already sealed. This idea does not simply emerge from philosophy, it is born of physics. Einstein's relativity leads naturally to this frozen view. The equations do not require a flowing present, nor do they distinguish between past and future. They describe spacetime as a whole, a four-dimensional block in which all events have their place. Some physicists embrace this vision wholeheartedly, convinced that it is the truest description of reality we possess. Others resist it, finding it too fatalistic, too bleak, too cold. But whether comforting or not, the mathematics remains indifferent to our preferences. Picture the Roman Empire at its height, bustling with life. In the block universe, that moment is still there. Roman markets still hum with trade. Soldiers still march across Europe. Philosophers still debate in marble courtyards. None of it is gone. It is simply elsewhere in the landscape of time. Likewise, 1,000 years from now, another civilization will rise, and its moments too will be etched eternally into the block. The past and the future exist as equally as this instant, silent monuments scattered across the terrain of reality. And yet this vision unsettles. If everything is fixed, if every moment exists eternally, then where is freedom? Where is choice? Do we decide anything at all, or are our decisions already carved into the block, inevitable and unchangeable? Is free will merely the sensation of walking through a landscape we cannot alter, believing we choose the path when in truth it has already been laid? The block universe does not answer these questions. It raises them like towering cliffs, daring us to confront their enormity. Still, there is a strange comfort hidden in the idea. If moments never vanish, then nothing we love is ever truly lost. The hug you shared with someone who is gone still exists, preserved forever in the block. Your child's first steps are eternal. The voice of someone you miss still rings out, not gone, but located elsewhere in the tapestry of spacetime. Death itself becomes a shift of perspective. From our vantage point, a life ends. From the perspective of the block, it continues eternally in the region where it occurred. We are not swept away by a river. We are etched into the stone of the universe. But comfort has its limits. The same permanence applies to pain. Wars never end. Suffering does not fade. Every tragedy is carved into the block as firmly as every joy. To believe in this vision is to accept that human history is not a story we leave behind but a terrain we inhabit forever. The concentration camps are still burning. The bombs are still falling. The screams are still echoing. Eternity preserves both beauty and horror with equal indifference. The block universe does not offer moral consolation. It offers only permanence. If the universe is a landscape, we are left to wonder why we feel the illusion of flow at all. Why does consciousness experience a now, a moving present, instead of the whole? One possibility is that our minds are limited. Just as our eyes perceive only a sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum, perhaps our brains perceive only a sliver of spacetime, experienced sequentially. Consciousness may be a narrow keyhole onto a vast mural, allowing us to see one moment at a time. If so, then our lives are not a journey through time but a journey through awareness, moving across the frozen terrain like a flashlight sweeping the frames of a film. This raises another haunting possibility. If the present is an illusion, then perhaps death is too. Perhaps when consciousness ceases, the light of awareness simply stops moving across the mural, but the mural itself remains. Your moments do not vanish because you no longer see them. They are eternal, preserved forever, waiting without you. In this way, mortality may not erase us. It may only silence the voice that calls one instant the present. The block universe is strange, unsettling, almost unbearable in its implications. But it forces us to reconsider what we mean by existence itself. To live may not be to pass through time but to be fixed within it, forever etched into the grand landscape. We are not leaves floating down a river. We are mountains, valleys, and stars carved into a frozen eternity. The river is an illusion. The landscape is real. Close your eyes and imagine walking through the ruins of an ancient city. The stones are cracked, the columns broken, the walls half swallowed by moss and silence. Tourists wander with cameras, trying to picture what once stood here. But what if you didn't need to imagine? What if the city was still alive, still breathing, not in memory or reconstruction, but in reality? What if, in some layer of time beyond our senses, the streets of Rome still pulse with life, the markets still echo with shouting merchants, the gladiators still step into the arena, unaware that for us their world has collapsed into dust? If the block universe is true, then none of it has ended. It all persists eternally, etched into the fabric of existence, invisible to us, but no less real. Picture the pyramids of Egypt not as weathered stone monuments, but as they were thousands of years ago, gleaming white in the desert sun, their tips capped with gold, shining like mirrors to the gods. Hear the chants of priests, smell the burning incense, feel the heat of the sand as slaves drag stones across the desert floor. We say it was the past. We say it is gone. But in the frozen landscape of time, it is still unfolding, still alive. Pharaohs still rule, the Nile still floods, offerings are still placed at sacred altars. Time does not destroy these moments. It preserves them, forever locked in the block. The thought is haunting, almost unbearable. We walk among ruins, thinking them silent. But what if they are not silent at all? What if, beneath the dust, beneath the weight of centuries, life is still humming, trapped in its eternal instant? Every stone we touch may be more than a relic. It may be a doorway, a wall separating us from another slice of time still alive on the other side. Perhaps the ruins are not remnants but shadows, faint impressions cast by worlds that still exist just beyond the reach of our awareness. Think of Pompeii, buried in volcanic ash nearly 2,000 years ago. Archaeologists have uncovered streets, frescoes, and even the final postures of people caught in their last desperate moments. To us, Pompeii is frozen in history, preserved as tragedy. But what if, in the block universe, Pompeii is not frozen but still happening? The eruption still roars, the ash still falls, the people still run through the streets, choking, crying, clutching their children. For us, it is history. For them, it is the present, eternally repeating in its own corner of time. The screams never end. The city never escapes its fate. The same is true for joy. Imagine a wedding in ancient China, lanterns glowing against the night sky, silk robes flowing as dancers move to the sound of flutes and drums. The laughter, the joy, the vows of eternal love, all of it still exists in the block, an endless celebration untouched by the centuries. To think of this is to realize that history is not a line but a library. Every story is still there, every page still inscribed, every scene still playing out in its own chapter. We call them ghosts, but perhaps ghosts are simply glimpses of other pages, other times bleeding into our perception. And yet the idea chills us. Because if every past moment is eternal, then so is every horror. Battles still rage. Soldiers still scream on blood-soaked fields. Cities still burn to the ground. Innocent lives are still cut short in endless repetition. History is not behind us. It is beside us, forever alive, forever unresolved. The wars we study in textbooks are still unfolding, just not in the slice of time we inhabit. The nightmares of the past never truly end. This perspective forces us to see ruins differently. They are not reminders of something gone. They are markers of something still happening elsewhere in the landscape of time. Every ruin is both a grave and a doorway, both a memory and a presence. The Colosseum still roars with the cries of spectators. The Parthenon still gleams with painted statues of gods. The Great Wall of China is still being built by tired hands. We are tourists not in ruins, but in echoes of realities that continue beyond our reach. To believe this is to blur the line between history and eternity. Museums, monuments, artifacts, all of them become fragments of something alive, not dead. We look at a shard of pottery and imagine the hand that shaped it. But in truth, that hand still moves, that clay is still wet, that fire is still burning. The past is not gone. It is still happening. We are simply not there to see it. And so the world feels haunted, not by spirits, but by persistence. Every step we take, every breath we draw, is layered atop countless others. Beneath the surface of now lies a city of yesterdays, alive and eternal. We walk in shadows, blind to the multitudes of history unfolding all around us. Ghosts are not echoes of death. They are reminders of eternity. The past has not ended. It waits, forever alive, forever present, just beyond the thin veil of our perception. At the smallest scale of reality, time begins to twist and shimmer in ways that defy ordinary imagination. The quantum world is a place where certainty dissolves, where particles exist in multiple states at once, and where the line between past, present, and future blurs into a haze of possibility. To peer into this realm is to enter a theater of strangeness, a stage where cause and effect no longer follow the rules we thought were carved into stone. Here, time is not a river flowing in one direction. It is a web, a tapestry of entanglements where moments whisper to each other across distances, and even across what we call time itself. Consider the double-slit experiment, one of the most famous demonstrations in physics. Fire electrons through two tiny slits, and instead of forming two neat clusters on the other side, they create an interference pattern as if each electron behaves like a wave passing through both slits at once. Stranger still, when we observe them, the pattern collapses and they act like particles again. It is as if reality changes depending on whether we are watching. But hidden in this experiment lies an even deeper mystery. The interference pattern suggests that the electron's behavior is influenced not only by the present setup, but perhaps by choices we make in the future. Retrocausality, the idea that effects can ripple backwards in time, becomes more than a philosophical puzzle. It becomes a possibility. In this microscopic theater, time refuses to behave. Photons and electrons do not march forward like soldiers. They shimmer in a fog of probability, exploring paths that include futures we have not yet chosen. At the quantum level, the universe does not ask, "What happened?" It asks, "What could happen?" and then keeps every possibility alive until an observation collapses it into a single outcome. But what if that collapse does not erase the other paths? What if, in the block universe, they all remain eternally present, each possibility a thread woven into the fabric of reality? The past, then, is not fixed. It is stitched together with strands of possibility, vibrating with the memory of what could have been as much as what was. Quantum entanglement only deepens the riddle. Take two particles born together and separate them across galaxies, and somehow, measuring one instantly reveals the state of the other. No signal passes between them. No delay betrays a message traveling at the speed of light. They remain connected beyond space and time, as if they are not two particles at all, but one existence stretched across the universe. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. But perhaps it is not spooky at all. Perhaps it is time itself bending, showing us that past and future, here and there, are not separate compartments but continuous threads in the same woven pattern. Imagine the implications. If entanglement is not limited by distance, could it also be unbound by time? Could a particle today remain entangled with itself yesterday or tomorrow? Could choices we have not yet made ripple backward, whispering into the past? Experiments in quantum mechanics already hint at this possibility. The delayed choice quantum eraser, for example, suggests that decisions made in the present can influence how particles behaved in the past. If true, then time is not a one-way street at all. It is a landscape where footsteps echo in every direction. For centuries, philosophers have argued about free will. Are we masters of our choices or prisoners of a predetermined script? The quantum world complicates the debate. If the future can affect the past, then causality is not linear but circular, perhaps even infinite. Imagine a loop where your decision tomorrow shapes the conditions of yesterday, where time is not a chain of dominoes falling one after another, but a ring of fire, each flame feeding the next. In such a world, what does it mean to choose? What does it mean to remember? To grasp the scale of this picture, envision a cosmic loom. Each particle is a thread, vibrating, twisting, branching into possibilities. Some threads loop back, entangling with others, knotting past and future into a single design. We, too, are woven into this tapestry. Our choices, our lives, our memories may not be confined to one direction of time. We may be both authors and readers of our story, shaping not only the future but echoing back into the past. And if the block universe holds true, every possibility exists forever, each thread shining in the eternal pattern. We are not walking along one road. We are surrounded by roads, infinite and simultaneous, all real, all alive. This realization is both wondrous and terrifying. If every path exists, then every version of you exists as well. The you who stayed, the you who left, the you who spoke, the you who stayed silent, all are written into the block of time. You are not one person, but a constellation of selves spread across countless possibilities. And in some way, you may still be entangled with them, feeling echoes of choices you did not make. Déjà vu, intuition, the inexplicable tug of paths not taken. Perhaps these are not illusions. Perhaps they are the faint vibrations of threads resonating across time. But the quantum world does not simply leave us with wonder. It confronts us with fear. If time is not linear, if cause and effect can bend and loop, then what does this say about our understanding of reality itself? Could the catastrophes of tomorrow ripple backward into today, subtly shaping our present choices? Could humanity already be influenced by futures we have not lived yet? The thought chills us because it suggests that we may never fully escape what lies ahead. We are not just prisoners of the past. We are prisoners of the future as well. And yet there is hope. Because if the threads of time run both ways, then perhaps so does possibility. Perhaps our greatest triumphs, our moments of compassion and discovery, ripple backward too, illuminating the dark corners of history. Perhaps the laughter of tomorrow can soften the sorrows of yesterday. If time is a tapestry, then it is not woven with despair alone. It is woven with light, with beauty, with threads of brilliance that never fade. To step into the quantum realm is to glimpse a universe where time is not a line but a web. Every thread matters. Every choice reverberates. Every possibility is real. We are not drifting along a river we cannot control. We are strands in a living fabric, entangled with the past and the future, whispering across the gulf of time. The quantum world does not just challenge our understanding of physics. It challenges our understanding of existence itself. Time feels like the most intimate thing we know. We wake, we breathe, we grow older, and we die, all while carried along by a current we cannot resist. The seconds tick forward, never pausing, never retreating. Memory lies behind us, possibility stretches ahead. We think of time as a river flowing endlessly toward the sea, sweeping everything within its grasp. And yet, when physicists and philosophers peel back the layers of this intuition, they discover something unsettling. The river may not flow at all. The sensation of time passing, the heartbeat of our days, might be nothing more than an illusion conjured by the mind. Think of a film reel. Each frame exists fully formed, a frozen image. When played in sequence, the still pictures create the illusion of motion. Our brains, designed to recognize patterns, stitch the frames into a story of movement even though no frame itself is moving. The arrow of time may work the same way. Each moment of reality could be a still frame, existing eternally side by side with all others. We experience them in sequence, and the stitching together creates the illusion of flow. Time, then, is not a river but a gallery of frozen images. We are the ones moving across them, like a flashlight scanning over photographs in the dark. But if this is true, then what is the present? Why do we feel anchored in a single moment, unable to jump backward or forward? Some neuroscientists argue that the brain itself imposes a window of perception, a span of a few seconds where sensory inputs are gathered and woven into what feels like now. What you perceive as the present may not be the razor-thin instant you imagine. It may be a stitched-together echo, a delayed reconstruction. In other words, you are always living slightly in the past, always chasing the present but never catching it. This raises a haunting possibility. If the present is a construction, then so is the flow of time itself. We feel motion because our minds are built to expect it. Our memories pile up one after another, and the accumulation creates the sense of movement forward. Without memory, time collapses. Without anticipation, it dissolves. In this sense, time is not a feature of the universe. It is a feature of consciousness. Without us to measure, would time exist at all? Or would the block universe remain as it is, silent, unmoving, eternal? Consider what this means for death. If time does not truly flow, then the moment of your birth still exists, as real as the moment of your death, as real as this instant of watching, listening, wondering. The story of you is already written, frame by frame, sealed into the block of spacetime. The flow is an illusion. The story is already complete. You are not moving through life. You are scattered across it, each version of you existing forever in its place. This thought is both chilling and comforting. It means we are not fleeting sparks snuffed out by the wind. It means every moment of love, every word spoken, every smile shared is still there, untouched, eternal. Yet the illusion is powerful and perhaps necessary. Imagine if you could see all of time at once, every frame of the real laid bare. Would choice mean anything? Would meaning survive if you could not move forward? The flow of time gives us urgency. It makes our actions matter. It tells us that moments are fragile, that opportunities vanish, that the kiss you do not take, the word you do not speak, will be lost forever. But what if this urgency is not truth but survival strategy? Perhaps consciousness evolved to trap us in the illusion of flow so that we would act, strive, and survive. The illusion, then, is the very condition of our existence. Still, cracks appear in the flow. Dreams often seem timeless, skipping across scenes without logic. In deep meditation, moments can stretch and dissolve, leaving the meditator unsure of whether hours or seconds have passed. And in trauma, time distorts. Seconds feel like hours, days collapse into minutes. The flow is not stable. It bends under pressure, reminding us that it may not be fundamental at all. Time is elastic, subjective, dependent on the fragile machinery of the mind. If the machinery breaks, the illusion breaks with it. Physics, too, challenges the flow. The laws of nature, at their most fundamental level, do not require time to move forward. The equations work just as well backward as forward. The arrow of time, the sense of direction, emerges not from the laws themselves but from entropy, the tendency of systems to move from order to disorder. We say the past is fixed and the future open because entropy increases. A shattered glass cannot leap back together. Smoke cannot return to the match. But entropy itself is not flow, it is structure. It gives us a gradient, not a current. We feel the river because disorder grows, but the river may be nothing more than a slope on which we slide. And so we are left with a strange duality. On one hand, we feel the flow with every heartbeat, every sunrise, every memory etched into the mind. On the other, the deeper we look, the more it seems that the flow is a trick of perception. The truth may be that all moments exist at once, silent and eternal, like frames of a cosmic film reel. Our lives are not journeys down a river. They are stories already written, pages already bound, the illusion of turning the pages created by the act of reading itself. But what then of hope? If the story is fixed, if flow is an illusion, do we lose the fire that drives us forward? Not necessarily. For even if all frames exist, you only experience them one at a time. The illusion is real to you, and in that reality, choices matter. You cannot see the whole reel, you can only live the sequence. Perhaps that is the genius of existence, to give us the illusion of becoming even in a universe where everything already is. The flow of time is the greatest trick of all, a masterpiece of perception. It carries us through joy and sorrow, triumph and despair. It gives us the courage to act, the urgency to love, the will to endure. And though it may be an illusion, it is an illusion that sustains us, one we cannot escape, and perhaps should not wish to. For without it, life would be a frozen picture. With it, life becomes a story. And a story, even if already written, is still worth living. From the earliest firesides to the most advanced observatories, humanity has wrestled with the riddle of time. It is not just a scientific question but one of mythology, culture, and survival. Civilizations across the world have looked into the sky, traced the movements of the sun and stars, and asked the same question: what is time, and what does it mean for us? The echoes of these questions reverberate through temples, scrolls, stone monuments, and sacred chants, each civilization leaving behind fragments of its answer. To hear them is to step into a chorus of wonder that stretches across millennia. The ancient Egyptians saw time as a cycle, eternal return. For them, the rising and setting of the sun was not a simple event but the eternal battle of Ra against darkness. Each dawn was victory, each dusk a descent into the underworld. Time was not a river flowing forward but a wheel endlessly turning. In their temples, carved deep into stone, one can still see the symmetry of their belief. Death was not the end, it was passage into another form of existence. Mummification, tombs, and the grand pyramids themselves were not just monuments to power but insurance policies against the erosion of time. To the Egyptians, the illusion of flow was not frightening. It was part of the divine rhythm. Cross the Mediterranean to Greece, and the story changes. Here, time splits in two: chronos, the measurable, the ticking of clocks, and kairos, the opportune, the moment of destiny. The Greeks sensed what physicists and neuroscientists only later described: that time is not one thing but many. It is both quantity and quality, structure and experience. For Homer, for Plato, for Aristotle, time was not simply a backdrop, it was the stage itself. They asked questions that still haunt us. Does time exist outside of change? Can there be time if nothing happens? Their answers, written in fragile ink on fragile scrolls, survive only as fragments, yet they carry an unbroken thread of awe. In India, a vast and ancient vision unfolded. Time here was not linear, not even cyclical in the small sense of days and seasons. Instead, time stretched into colossal ages, yugas and kalpas, eras so immense that they dwarf the lifespan of civilizations. A single day of Brahma, the creator god, was said to last longer than the birth and death of universes. The flow of time dissolved into something incomprehensible, a cosmic scale beyond human grasp. To live within it was to understand that existence itself was a flicker, a wave in an endless ocean. Yet this vastness was not meant to terrify. It humbled, it placed human life into context, and it whispered the truth that what feels final may only be one turn in an eternal dance. Travel farther east, and the Chinese vision of time speaks with its own voice. For the Taoists, time was not a force but a balance, a rhythm of yin and yang. The I Ching, the Book of Changes, saw the universe not as fixed moments but as constant transformation. Nothing stayed the same, but nothing was ever truly lost. The past was not gone. It was folded into the present like echoes in a valley that linger long after the sound has been made. Here, time was not enemy nor master but partner, teaching the wisdom of harmony. To act in the right moment was to align oneself with the flow of heaven. Among the Maya, time was mathematics, precision etched into stone. Their calendars were not simple records of days but cosmic machines, able to predict eclipses, align with planetary cycles, and mirror the heartbeat of the universe. To them, time was sacred architecture. Each cycle carried meaning, and the end of one was not destruction but renewal. When the great long count calendar reached its famous turning point in 2012, many feared apocalypse, but for the Maya it would have been transformation, a door opening, not slamming shut. They remind us that what looks like an ending may only be another beginning, that the fear of finality is born from misunderstanding. And then there are the voices of indigenous peoples across the world, the Hopi of North America, who saw time as a circle of emergence, a spiraling of worlds, the Aboriginal Australians who spoke of the dream time, a realm where past, present, and future are not divided but coexist in eternal presence. Their stories remind us that the Western obsession with linear progress is not the only way to perceive existence. To dream, to remember, to tell stories, is this not also a way of living outside the illusion of flow? What is remarkable is not how different these visions are, but how they converge. Across continents, across centuries, humanity has intuited what science is only now beginning to confirm: that time is not what it seems. It is not a simple arrow. It is not a one-way river. It is something stranger, deeper, and far more elusive. The Egyptians, the Greeks, the Hindus, the Maya, they all saw glimpses of the truth. Each gave it a different shape, a different name, but all pointed toward the same abyss of mystery. And here lies the great irony. Modern physics, armed with equations and experiments, often finds itself circling back to the same ideas that ancient civilizations wove into myth and ritual. When Einstein shattered Newton's absolute clock, he was not far from the Indian notion of time stretching into unfathomable scales. When quantum mechanics revealed that observation itself shapes reality, echoes of the Taoist worldview could be heard. And when cosmologists speak of cycles of expansion and contraction, of universes dying and being born, the Maya whisper through the stones of forgotten cities. We have heard this before. Why should this matter? Because it reminds us that the human quest for truth is not a straight line of progress but an echo chamber where ideas rise, fade, and return in new forms. The ancients did not have particle accelerators, but they had the sky, the earth, the stories of their elders, and the fire of imagination. Their insights, though dressed in myth, were not foolish, they were profound. To dismiss them is to lose part of our inheritance. To listen to them is to recognize that the mystery of time has always been bigger than any single culture, bigger than any single era. The echoes of civilizations are more than historical curiosities. They are warnings and invitations. They warn us against arrogance, against believing that our current understanding is the final word. And they invite us to see that perhaps we are not inventing truth but rediscovering it, again and again, across the flow, or the illusion of flow, of history. And so the question remains, as it has for thousands of years: what is time? The answer has never been simple, and perhaps it never will be. Yet in the chorus of voices, Egyptian, Greek, Indian, Chinese, Mayan, Aboriginal, we hear not confusion but harmony. A harmony built not on certainty but on awe. Awe that the universe exists at all. Awe that we are here to ask the question. Awe that, in every civilization across every age, we keep searching for the same truth, whether time is a river, a wheel, a dream, or an illusion. At the dawn of the 20th century, the world was bracing itself for modernity. Electricity was beginning to spread through cities, trains were uniting distant lands, and machines were changing the pace of human life. Yet beneath the surface of progress, the most fundamental assumptions about the universe still seemed unshakable. Time and space, those silent frameworks that had governed thought since Newton, were believed to be eternal, absolute, and unquestionable. The universe was a stage, vast and immovable, upon which events unfolded in neat succession. Time ticked the same for all, a universal heartbeat indifferent to circumstance. It seemed self-evident, inevitable, beyond debate. And then a young patent clerk in Bern would set fire to this certainty and alter our relationship with reality forever. Albert Einstein was not a figure destined at first glance to rewrite the laws of the cosmos. He was an outsider overlooked by academia, working in obscurity as he stamped patents by day and wrestled with thought experiments by night. But his mind was restless, and his imagination refused to bow to convention. While others memorized equations, Einstein asked childlike questions with dangerous seriousness. What would it feel like to ride on a beam of light? If you could chase it, would time itself change? In these thought experiments lay the seeds of revolution. In 1905, his miracle year, Einstein delivered the special theory of relativity. Its message was as shocking as it was elegant. Time is not absolute. It does not tick identically for everyone. It bends, stretches, and warps depending on speed. If you move fast enough, near the speed of light, time itself slows for you relative to those left behind. A twin who journeys across the stars at near light velocity will return younger than the sibling who stayed on Earth. This was not science fiction. It was the mathematics of reality, verified by experiment again and again. Time, the one thing humanity thought untouchable, had betrayed us. The implications shattered every certainty. There was no single universal clock synchronizing existence. Instead, each observer carried their own rhythm, their own ticking heart of time. Two events that seem simultaneous to one might not be simultaneous to another. Even the order of events was no longer guaranteed. The sturdy scaffolding of Newton's cosmos dissolved into a fluid fabric dependent on perspective. Time was not the stage, it was part of the play, reshaped by the actors themselves. But Einstein was not finished. A decade later, he unveiled general relativity, a theory that deepened the shock. Gravity, long thought of as a force pulling objects together, became something entirely new, the warping of spacetime itself. The planets did not circle the sun because of an invisible tug, but because the sun bent the very fabric of reality, guiding the planets along curved paths. Time itself slowed in the presence of gravity. Near a massive star, near a black hole, seconds stretch into eternity. The ticking of your watch, the beating of your heart, the rhythm of your life, all are chained to the fabric of spacetime, twisted by matter and energy. It was not just a theory, it was a new vision of existence. Suddenly, the cosmos became dynamic, alive, a vast ocean of curves and waves. Time was not uniform. It was relative. It was personal. And perhaps most haunting of all, if time could bend and warp, then perhaps it was not flowing forward at all. Perhaps the past, present, and future all existed together, locked in the structure of space-time like pages of a book already written. We do not move through time, Einstein suggested. Time simply is. For many, this revelation was exhilarating. It meant the universe was stranger, more mysterious, and more beautiful than anyone had dared imagine. But for others, it was deeply unsettling. If time is not flowing, what does it mean to live? What does it mean to choose? Are we free, or are we merely reading the script of a story already complete? In the halls of philosophy, Einstein's revolution reopened the most ancient debates of fate and free will. If the block universe is real, a cosmos where all of time exists at once, then perhaps the future already waits for us as immutable as the past. Einstein himself remained cautious. He was less interested in the philosophical ripples than in the mathematical elegance of the theory. Yet he was not immune to its implications. He once consoled the widow of a friend by saying that for physicists, the distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubborn illusion. To most, this was poetry. To Einstein, it was truth. Time as we feel it is not what time truly is. The experiments that followed confirmed his vision with eerie precision. Atomic clocks flown around the Earth ticked differently than those left on the ground. Light bent around stars exactly as general relativity predicted. Black holes, once unthinkable, emerged as inevitable consequences of warped spacetime. Every confirmation tightened the grip of his revolution, leaving no escape back to the comfort of Newton's universe. Humanity had crossed a threshold it could never retreat from. Yet what makes Einstein's revolution most extraordinary is not only its scientific triumph but its narrative resonance. He did not simply replace one equation with another. He replaced one worldview with something infinitely stranger. For millennia, people looked at the sky and assumed it to be eternal and fixed. Einstein revealed it to be pliable, fragile, almost alive. In one stroke, he made the cosmos more terrifying and more intimate. Terrifying because time itself could no longer be trusted. Intimate because the beating of your heart, the seconds of your life, were woven into the very structure of reality itself. There is a cinematic beauty in the way his revolution unfolds. Imagine two lovers separated by space. One travels across the stars at incredible speed, the other remains on Earth. When they reunite, one has aged decades while the other has barely changed. Their love is not just tested by distance but by time itself. Or imagine a clock placed near the rim of a black hole, ticking infinitely slower than one far away. The universe does not care about our assumptions of fairness. Time is merciless in its relativity, indifferent, yet absolute in its truth. Einstein's revolution also framed the greatest paradox of modern science. Relativity tells us time is flexible, personal, relative. Quantum mechanics, born in the same era, insists on probabilities, uncertainty, events collapsing into being. Together they describe a universe of profound mystery, but they do not agree. Beneath Einstein's triumph lies a deeper puzzle, one that scientists still struggle to solve. Is time continuous or discrete? Is it woven into space-time or emergent from something deeper? Einstein opened the door but left us staring into a corridor with no end. And yet, perhaps this is why his revolution endures, not just as science, but as story. It does not close the question of time, it amplifies it. It gives us tools, but it also humbles us. We now know that our intuition is flawed, our senses deceived, our common sense useless at the edges of reality. Time is not a simple flow. It is a landscape, a geometry, a mystery we live inside of without ever fully understanding. For a young man in a patent office, scribbling notes after long days of clerical work, the act of questioning the obvious was enough to overturn centuries of certainty. That is the lesson of Einstein's revolution, not just that the universe is stranger than we thought, but that daring to ask, what if, can change the world. And with his revolution, the illusion of time's flow cracked open, leaving us forever unsettled, forever curious, forever reaching for the truth that lies just beyond the horizon. If you close your eyes and simply breathe, you can feel it, the steady rhythm of time flowing forward. The inhale, the exhale, the beat of your heart. Every moment seems to vanish into the past, replaced instantly by the next. It feels like a river endlessly moving, carrying us from birth toward death, from memory toward destiny. This sensation is so powerful, so intimate, that to question it feels absurd. Time flows. Of course it does. We live it, we feel it, we suffer it. But what if this flow is not a feature of the universe at all? What if it is nothing more than a trick of perception, an illusion sculpted by our minds to make sense of change? The great puzzle begins with Einstein's insights. His theories showed us that the universe does not demand a universal now. There is no cosmic clock keeping perfect rhythm across the stars. Instead, every observer carries their own sense of time, relative to motion and gravity. When physicists look at the equations that describe spacetime, they see something startling. The laws themselves do not single out the present. They treat past, present, and future as equally real, equally written into the structure of reality. Time, in the deep mathematics of physics, does not flow. It simply exists. Imagine standing before a towering mountain. At the base is your childhood, the early years etched like ridges in stone. Halfway up is your present moment, full of decisions and struggles. Higher still, beyond sight, lies the rest of your life. From where you stand, you feel as if you are climbing, each step consuming the path beneath your feet. But from a distance, from the perspective of physics, the entire mountain is already there. The path is laid. The summit already exists, waiting. You only experience the climb because of the way your consciousness moves along it. The illusion of flow comes not from time itself, but from the way our minds process it. Psychology offers another lens. Our brains are not cameras capturing continuous reality. They are editors, stitching together fragments of perception into a coherent film. Neurons fire in bursts, sensations arrive in pulses, memories are constructed after the fact. The smooth passage of time we feel is the result of this stitching process, the brain's desperate attempt to create order out of chaos. Without this editing, life would feel like a broken mosaic, moments colliding without continuity. Flow is not the universe speaking, it is the mind's storytelling. Consider dreams. In the span of a few minutes of sleep, the mind can conjure elaborate narratives that feel like hours, even days. Time in dreams bends and stretches with no tether to reality. Yet when you wake, the dream feels like it flowed naturally, one moment leading to the next. Your brain supplied the illusion of time's rhythm even when none existed. What if waking life is no different, except tethered to the constraints of biology? What if every second you experience is a carefully manufactured simulation of continuity? But this raises a haunting question. If time's flow is an illusion, what does it mean for memory and identity? We believe we are the same person who existed yesterday, changed by experience, carrying a trail of moments behind us. Yet neuroscience suggests that memory is fragile, reconstructed anew each time we recall it. The past we carry with us is not a recording but a constantly rewritten story. We do not move through time like travelers along a road. We rewrite the map with every step, convincing ourselves of continuity. Perhaps the self itself is a product of the illusion, a character invented by the narrative of flow. For philosophers, this realization has been devastating and liberating in equal measure. If time does not flow, then the future is already as real as the past. You have not yet walked those steps, but they already exist in the structure of spacetime. The events of tomorrow are no less real than the events of yesterday. This view, known as eternalism, transforms our understanding of destiny. It suggests that we are not moving into the future. It is already there, waiting, immutable. The flow we feel is simply the mind's way of experiencing one slice at a time. And yet, there is resistance. Our entire culture is built upon the notion of flow. We speak of lost time, wasted time, borrowed time. We cherish the present, regret the past, fear the future. We structure laws, religions, and stories around the march of time's arrow. If this arrow is an illusion, then the foundation of human meaning trembles. How can we speak of progress, of growth, of redemption, if all moments coexist equally? If your childhood is as real now as your deathbed, then where does hope live? Where does choice reside? This is where contrast sharpens the mystery. On one side, physics tells us time is static, a landscape already drawn. On the other, experience screams that time flows like water, that we are immersed in its current. The clash is violent, irreconcilable. Perhaps this tension itself is the truth. We are creatures caught between two realities, the timeless structure of physics and the flowing narrative of consciousness. One does not cancel the other. Instead, they coexist, each describing the world from a different vantage point. Einstein himself recognized this paradox. He spoke of the stubborn illusion of time's flow, acknowledging that while the equations denied it, human experience could not let it go. Perhaps he understood that illusions, while false in one sense, are indispensable in another. The rainbow is an illusion of light bending through water droplets, yet no less real for those who see it. Time's flow may be the same, a trick of perspective that is both false in physics and essential in life. Artists and storytellers have long intuited this truth. Cinema itself is a machine of illusion, a rapid sequence of still images stitched together to create motion. Audiences weep, laugh, and feel suspense not because the film is truly moving but because the mind supplies the illusion of flow. Perhaps reality is no different. Perhaps existence is a film reel of spacetime, and we are the projectors animating the still frames into a moving story. In that case, the question is not whether the flow is real, but why evolution gave us the need to feel it. One possibility is survival. A creature that experiences time as flowing can anticipate danger, plan for the future, and learn from the past. The illusion of flow may have been the ultimate adaptation, granting us the ability to imagine tomorrow and avoid its perils. If time were experienced as static, life might collapse into paralysis, choices meaningless against the inevitability of outcomes. The illusion gave rise to urgency, and urgency gave rise to survival. In this sense, flow is not truth, but it is life. And yet, beneath this pragmatic layer lies a profound unease. If the flow of time is merely illusion, then the moments we cling to, the first kiss, the last goodbye, the victories, the failures, may not pass at all. They simply exist, frozen forever, inaccessible but real. To know that your happiest memory still exists somewhere untouched, while your darkest hour also persists eternally, is both comforting and terrifying. The illusion of flow shields us from this unbearable simultaneity, allowing us to believe in endings, in closure, in moving on. Without it, existence becomes overwhelming. In the end, the illusion of flow may be the most human of all phenomena. Physics strips it away, revealing the block universe where all times exist equally. Psychology explains it as a construction of the brain. Philosophy warns us that it may rob us of free will. And yet, none of this changes how it feels to wake up to a sunrise, to watch shadows lengthen into evening, to hold the hand of someone as moments slip away. We may know it is illusion, but we cannot live without it. Perhaps that is the paradox of being human, to see the truth and still live by the lie. The universe may not flow, but we do. We flow through laughter and grief, through youth and age, through stories we write as if they were rivers rather than mountains. In that flowing, we find meaning, even if the river exists only in our minds. The illusion may be stubborn, but perhaps it is also merciful. It grants us the gift of narrative, the courage to endure, and the hope that tomorrow is not already written, even if it is. From the very beginning of human thought, time has been a battlefield. Not of armies or nations, but of ideas. Philosophy wrestling with physics, intuition clashing with mathematics. It is here, in this struggle, that we discover how differently the two realms treat the most fundamental question of existence. What is time? Philosophers see it as a question of meaning. Physicists see it as a question of structure. Between them lies a gulf as wide as the cosmos itself, and in that gulf, our understanding of reality teeters. The philosophers begin with the human heart. They ask what it means to experience time, to remember, to anticipate, to live in a present that feels fleeting yet substantial. For Augustine, the 4th century thinker, time was inseparable from consciousness. He wrote that the past exists only in memory, the future only in expectation, and the present only in attention. Strip away the mind and the flow of time evaporates. In this vision, time is not something out there in the universe ticking like a cosmic metronome. It is something generated within us, a feature of awareness itself. Physics, on the other hand, is merciless. It does not care for memory or longing. It sees time as a coordinate, no different from space, woven into the fabric of reality. When Einstein revealed that space and time are not separate but interlaced into spacetime, he shattered the philosopher's intimate, human notion of time. In Einstein's equations, there is no privileged now. Events simply exist, laid out across the cosmic tapestry. Past, present, and future are equally real, equally written. The universe does not flow. It simply is. This conflict deepens when we consider causality. Philosophers cling to the arrow of time, the conviction that causes precede effects, that the future is open while the past is fixed. Without this arrow, how can meaning survive? How can morality, responsibility, or choice exist if tomorrow already lies frozen? Physics, however, complicates this comfort. The fundamental laws, whether in Newton's mechanics or Schrödinger's quantum wave equations, do not care about direction. They work just as well in reverse. A shattered glass reassembling is not forbidden by the mathematics, only by probability. To physics, time is symmetric. To philosophy, it is irreversible. This irreversibility is where human life insists on being heard. We live by memory, not anticipation. We regret, we celebrate anniversaries, we write history books. The arrow of time is etched into our experience, and to deny it feels like erasing what makes us human. Philosophers argue that even if physics claims time is symmetric, the lived reality of its arrow must be honored. Perhaps the arrow is not an illusion, but a phenomenon emerging from deeper laws we have not yet discovered. The clash between lived truth and mathematical truth cannot be ignored. For centuries, philosophers asked whether time even exists outside the mind. Immanuel Kant argued that time, like space, is not an external feature of reality but a framework our minds impose on experience. We cannot perceive the world without placing it into the categories of space and time. If he was right, then physics itself is simply a refined version of that mental imposition, a grand system built upon a human necessity. Physics believes it has discovered time. Philosophy suspects it has only described the structure of thought. And then there are those who take the opposite stance, the realists. They argue that time exists independently of perception, that our experience may distort it, but the river flows regardless of human awareness. To them, physics has stripped away the illusions and shown us the bedrock. Yet even within physics, debates rage. Some, like the advocates of presentism, insist that only the present moment is real, that the past has vanished and the future does not yet exist. Others, eternalists, counter that all moments coexist, that the block universe is the true shape of reality. Philosophers and physicists alike divide themselves along these lines, proving that neither side holds a monopoly on certainty. What makes the divide sharper is the role of entropy. The second law of thermodynamics states that disorder always increases in an isolated system. A cup of hot coffee cools, never the reverse. This law seems to carve the arrow of time into the heart of physics itself. And yet entropy is statistical, not absolute. On a microscopic level, particles obey laws that remain indifferent to time's direction. Entropy emerges only when we zoom out, when we describe billions of particles collectively. Philosophers seize on this. They argue that the arrow of time may not be a fundamental law but a perspective, a story we tell when confronting complexity. If that is true, then physics and philosophy converge in a troubling way. Time's arrow is not real in itself, but emerges from the way we describe the world. The debate is not academic. It strikes at the roots of identity, freedom, and meaning. If physics is right and the block universe exists, then free will becomes questionable. How can we choose if our choices already lie written in the future's pages? Philosophers wrestle with this, some arguing that free will must be redefined, others surrendering to determinism. Physics does not provide comfort. Its equations unfold without preference, without room for human longing. In this stark vision, we are passengers, not pilots, carried by a structure already formed. And yet, despite this coldness, physics also offers awe. To see time as a dimension reveals a universe vast and strange, where moments never truly die. Your first breath, your greatest triumph, your last heartbeat, all coexist within the cosmic fabric, eternal and untouchable. Philosophers who prize meaning cannot help but feel drawn to this vision, even as it unsettles them. It grants permanence to memory, reality to possibility. Perhaps this permanence itself is a form of meaning, though alien to our instincts. Some thinkers try to bridge the divide. They suggest that time may be both physical and philosophical, existing in two layers. On the fundamental level, physics describes a timeless structure, static and complete. On the experiential level, consciousness generates the sensation of flow, stitching together moments into narrative. Neither cancels the other. Instead, they represent two perspectives on the same reality, as different as a map and the terrain it depicts. The challenge lies in accepting both without demanding they collapse into one. In the end, the confrontation between philosophical time and physical time is not a problem to be solved, but a mirror to our condition. Physics reveals the machinery of the cosmos, indifferent and eternal. Philosophy reminds us of the human heart, fragile and longing. Between them lies a tension we cannot escape, for we are creatures of both realms. We measure time with clocks and equations, but we live it through memory and anticipation. We cannot surrender one without losing the other. Perhaps the truth is not to choose sides, but to see the conflict itself as essential. Time is both the physicist's dimension and the philosopher's mystery. It is the static block and the flowing river, the eternal and the fleeting. It is the paradox that makes us human, forcing us to live as if we are free in a universe that may already be written, to find meaning in moments that physics tells us are illusions, to love in a world where every embrace is both eternal and gone. So the debate continues, stretching across centuries, unresolved. Philosophers ask what it means. Physicists ask how it works. Neither can claim victory because time refuses to be pinned down. It slips through equations and metaphors alike, always present, always elusive. Perhaps that is its final secret. Time itself is the space between knowledge and mystery, the silence where philosophy and physics speak past one another, and where we, tiny creatures caught between eternity and experience, find our place. We live as though time is a river, always flowing forward, always carrying us downstream toward an inevitable sea. We wake to the tick of alarm clocks, measure our days in schedules, celebrate birthdays, mourn anniversaries, and mark history with calendars carved in stone. To us, time feels like the most certain truth of existence. It governs our routines, shapes our dreams, and sets the boundaries of our lives. And yet, as we begin to pull back the layers of perception, a startling possibility emerges. Time may not be what we think. It may not flow at all. It may be an illusion woven by the mind, a story consciousness tells itself so that existence can make sense. The illusion begins with memory. Imagine sitting in a quiet room. A sound strikes, perhaps a bell, perhaps a footstep, and the instant it occurs, it is already gone. Yet somehow you still hold it, replay it, recall it. This fragile thread of memory convinces you that the sound persists, that the past exists in some form. Without memory, there would be no past, only an unbroken sequence of immediacy. The philosopher Augustine argued long ago that the past survives only in memory, the future only in expectation, and the present only in awareness. Time, in his view, was not a property of the universe but of the mind itself. What we call the flow of time may simply be the stitching together of these three mental acts. Modern neuroscience has echoed this suspicion. The brain does not record reality as it unfolds but assembles it. Signals from the eyes, the ears, the skin arrive at different speeds, fractions of a second apart. The brain waits, integrates, and then constructs what we perceive as a seamless now. In truth, the present moment is already delayed, already edited. It is not the real world but a polished illusion presented to consciousness. The flow of time, then, is less like a river and more like a film reel, individual frames stitched together and projected at such speed that we believe they move. Our lives may be nothing more than a long projection, with the projector hidden inside our skulls. Yet the illusion deepens when we consider the future. We behave as though it exists, as though it lies ahead like an unexplored landscape waiting to be discovered. We plan, prepare, anticipate, but the future has no substance outside of imagination. It is a mental simulation, a projection of possibilities stitched from memory and pattern. Neuroscience reveals that the same regions of the brain that recall the past also imagine the future. To think forward is merely to reconfigure what has already been stored. The future, then, is a ghost, an echo of memory wearing a mask. We live in anticipation of something that does not yet exist and may never exist at all. If the past is memory and the future is imagination, what then of the present? Here, too, certainty slips away. Try to hold onto the present moment. Try to isolate the now. By the time you notice it, it is gone. The present is infinitely thin, a boundary without substance. Physics agrees. In the equations of relativity, there is no privileged now. Events simply exist across spacetime, each as real as the next, none singled out as present. What we call the moment may be nothing more than the spotlight of consciousness moving across the stage of eternity. The stage is already built. The script is already written. The illusion lies in believing that the play is unfolding in real time. This realization unsettles us because our entire sense of identity rests on time's illusion. We believe we are the same person we were yesterday, evolving toward who we will be tomorrow. We weave our lives into stories with beginnings, middles, and ends. The illusion of time grants coherence to existence. Without it, who would we be? Perhaps nothing more than fragments, disconnected flashes of experience without continuity. Time gives us the gift of narrative, and in that narrative, we find meaning. But illusions can be both fragile and powerful. Consider how altered states of consciousness disrupt our perception of time. In dreams, hours of experience unfold in minutes. Under the influence of certain substances, seconds stretch into eternities or vanish altogether. Trauma can make moments feel frozen, while joy can make hours dissolve in what feels like an instant. None of these distortions change the external world, yet they remind us that what we call time is not an absolute reality but a pliable construction. If time can bend in the mind, perhaps the mind is its only true source. Physics itself lends weight to this suspicion. Quantum mechanics, in many interpretations, describes a universe where time is not fundamental but emergent. At the smallest scales, events do not unfold in sequence but exist in superpositions, timeless states that only resolve when observed. Some theories suggest that time arises only when particles become entangled with large systems, only when information flows in a particular way. If this is true, then time as we know it is not built into the universe but blooms from complexity, much like consciousness itself. In other words, the flow of time may be as real as the taste of sweetness, vivid, undeniable, yet produced entirely by the mind. The human illusion of time, however, is not a failure. It is a survival mechanism. Without memory, we could not learn. Without anticipation, we could not prepare. Without the narrative of self, we could not endure suffering, nor could we hope. The illusion is not a deception meant to mislead but a tool meant to sustain. We evolved not to see the universe as it is but as we must in order to live within it. Time as we perceive it is a masterpiece of adaptation. Yet the illusion carries a cost. Because we believe in time's flow, we fear its loss. We cling to youth, mourn the passing of loved ones, dread the approach of death. We imagine the future as a place we must reach, not realizing that perhaps we are already everywhere we will ever be. We suffer not because the universe demands it, but because the illusion of time persuades us that everything slips away. To see through the illusion, even for a moment, is to glimpse a strange liberation. If all moments coexist, then nothing is ever truly lost. Your childhood laughter, your greatest joy, your deepest sorrow, all are still real, still there, timelessly etched into the fabric of existence. The illusion is that they are gone. This idea is almost unbearable, and yet it is also profoundly comforting. If time is an illusion, then loss itself may be an illusion. Memory does not merely recall the past, it touches it. Anticipation does not merely invent the future, it glimpses it. The self we believe to be traveling through time may instead be a consciousness lighting up different points of an eternal structure. We are not moving through time. Time is moving through us. In the end, the human illusion of time is not something to be dismissed but something to be understood. It is the lens through which we see the universe, the grammar of our existence. To strip it away entirely would be to strip away meaning itself. But to recognize it as an illusion is to expand our vision, to realize that what we take as absolute is, in fact, fragile and contingent. It is to stand at the edge of the river and realize the water was never flowing. The river was always frozen. We were the ones moving. Perhaps this is the paradox we are meant to live with. Time feels real, and in that feeling, it shapes our entire existence. Yet beneath the surface, science and philosophy whisper that it may be nothing more than a trick of perception. We cannot escape the illusion, but we can learn to see through it. And in that seeing, perhaps we can live differently, not in fear of what is passing, but in wonder at what is already eternal. We are told that time moves forward. We feel it in the rhythm of our days, in the way the sun rises and sets, in the way childhood turns into youth and youth into age. There is a direction to time, an arrow pointing from the past toward the future. But where does that arrow come from? Why do we remember yesterday but not tomorrow? Why does glass shatter but never reassemble? Why do we grow older and not younger? The mystery of time's direction is one of the most profound puzzles in science and philosophy, and its answer lies in a single word: entropy. Entropy is the measure of disorder, of randomness, of the spreading out of energy and information. In a universe governed by the second law of thermodynamics, entropy tends to increase. Hot coffee cools, never spontaneously heating up. A deck of cards, once shuffled, does not reorder itself into perfect sequence. A drop of ink disperses in water, never gathering itself back into a neat sphere. This relentless push toward disorder gives rise to the arrow of time. From order to disorder, from low entropy to high entropy, the universe slides forward. The arrow of time is not written in the laws of physics themselves. Those laws work just as well backward as forward, but it emerges from the overwhelming probability that disorder increases. At first, this may sound abstract, even mathematical, but entropy is all around us. It is why memories form in one direction and not the other. It is why broken hearts ache and cannot return to innocence. It is why life itself is a fight against decay. Each moment we live, we produce entropy, scattering energy outward, leaving a trail of irreversibility behind us. The arrow of time is not just a feature of the cosmos. It is etched into our very being. Yet the existence of the arrow raises a deeper question. Why did the universe begin in such a low entropy state? If disorder is so likely, why did the cosmos start with so much order? The Big Bang, in its fiery expansion, produced a universe that was remarkably uniform, smooth, and structured, conditions that allowed stars to ignite, galaxies to form, and life eventually to emerge. But such a state is improbable, staggeringly improbable. Roger Penrose once calculated that the odds of the universe beginning with such low entropy are 1 in 10 raised to the power of 10 raised to the power of 123. To write that number would require more digits than there are particles in the observable universe. And yet here we are, living in the wake of that improbable order, carried forward by the arrow of time it set into motion. This paradox, that the universe began in extreme order only to evolve into chaos, invites speculation. Some suggest that entropy is not absolute but relative, that what we perceive as disorder is simply complexity beyond comprehension. Others imagine cycles of cosmic rebirth, where universes collapse and restart, resetting entropy in ways we cannot yet grasp. Still others propose that we live in a multiverse and our universe just happened to be one of the rare ones that began with the right conditions for time's arrow to emerge. None of these ideas are proven, but each points to a haunting truth. The arrow of time may not be as inevitable as we think. It may be a fragile consequence of a peculiar beginning. And what of our experience of time? Why do we feel it as a flow, as an irreversible march forward? The answer again lies in entropy. Memory itself is a record of order breaking down. When you recall an event, your brain encodes it by creating patterns of neural connections. The act of storing that memory produces entropy. To remember the past is to create a scar of irreversibility. The future, on the other hand, cannot be remembered because it has not yet left a trace. It has not yet produced entropy. Our sense of direction, our certainty that time flows forward, is inseparable from the thermodynamic truth that disorder always increases. This connection between entropy and time also reveals why life is temporary. To live is to resist entropy, to maintain order in the body against the universe's drift toward chaos. Cells repair themselves. DNA copies itself. Organisms eat and breathe to restore balance. But this fight cannot be won forever. Entropy seeps in. Errors accumulate. Systems degrade. Aging is entropy at work, the body's gradual surrender to disorder. Death is the final equilibrium, when the illusion of resistance collapses. And yet, even in death, entropy creates new beginnings, decomposed matter nourishing soil, energy radiating into the cosmos. The arrow of time does not stop. It only transforms. The arrow of time also explains why we value moments. The fleeting beauty of a sunset, the fragile sweetness of love, the brevity of joy, all derive their poignancy from their impermanence. We know the moment will not return. We know the glass will break. The awareness that entropy will eventually claim everything gives life its intensity. If time were reversible, if entropy could run backward, meaning itself might dissolve. Every event would be repeatable, every loss reparable, every ending undone. The uniqueness of existence would vanish. It is precisely because time has a direction, because entropy writes scars that cannot be erased, that we feel the weight of each heartbeat. But some thinkers wonder, is entropy truly the author of time's arrow, or is it simply the way we measure change? Imagine a universe where entropy remained constant. Would time exist at all? Would consciousness unfold? Or would everything freeze? A still life of eternal order without history or future? Perhaps time requires entropy not just to flow, but to be. The spreading of disorder may not merely describe the arrow of time but generate it, as though entropy and time are two sides of the same coin. And yet, the arrow of time is not universal. At the quantum scale, time seems reversible, particles dancing without regard for past or future. Entropy applies to large systems, not to the flicker of subatomic events. This suggests that the arrow of time is not fundamental but emergent, born when countless small interactions accumulate into overwhelming probabilities. In other words, the arrow of time is a story that emerges only when we step back far enough to see the whole. To the universe at its core, past and future may not exist. Only when viewed through the lens of entropy does the narrative of time unfold. This leaves us with a profound contradiction. On the one hand, time's arrow feels inescapable, dictating the direction of our lives. On the other, it may not exist at the deepest level of reality. We are beings caught between these truths, compelled to live in a world where entropy rules, yet glimpsing through science and philosophy the possibility that time is not what it seems. Perhaps the arrow of time is like the horizon, real to our perception, guiding our path, yet ultimately a product of perspective. Still, the arrow cannot be dismissed. It shapes galaxies, stars, and hearts. It governs birth and decay, love and loss, beginnings and ends. It is why we rise in the morning and why we eventually fall. To live is to ride the arrow forward, even as we question its origin. And in the end, the arrow of time may not merely be a cosmic law, but a human truth, that we are creatures of impermanence, living stories written in the language of entropy, carried forward by the unstoppable tide of disorder, yet forever seeking meaning within the fleeting order we call life. What if time is not real? What if it is not an external dimension that flows independently of us, but instead a construct, an invention of the mind, a scaffolding that helps us make sense of change? This is not a new idea. For thousands of years, philosophers have wrestled with the question of whether time exists or whether it is merely a human illusion, stitched together from perception and memory. And the more we probe the nature of time through science, the more this ancient suspicion returns. Perhaps time is not something we move through. Perhaps it is something we create. St. Augustine once wrote, "What then is time? If no one asks me, I know. If I wish to explain it to him who asks, I do not know." His words capture the paradox of time. We all feel it. We count it. We order our lives by its ticking. And yet, when we try to define it, it slips away, elusive and intangible. Augustine suggested that time might not exist outside us at all. The past exists only as memory, the future only as expectation, and the present vanishes the moment we try to grasp it. Time, in this view, is not a thing. It is a relation between things, a perception of movement, a measure of change. Modern physics has only deepened this philosophical puzzle. Einstein's theory of relativity showed that time is not absolute. It bends, stretches, and slows depending on speed and gravity. There is no universal now. Two observers moving differently can disagree on the order of events, and both are correct. This shattered the Newtonian view of time as an unchanging stage on which reality unfolds. Instead, Einstein revealed a cosmos where time is woven into the fabric of space, malleable and relative. From this perspective, time is less like a river and more like a landscape where past, present, and future all coexist, and our perception of flow is just the way consciousness moves through the terrain. But if all moments exist equally, if the universe is a block where every event, from the first spark of the Big Bang to the last whisper of a dying star, is frozen in place, then what becomes of our lived experience? What becomes of free will? What becomes of meaning? The block universe theory suggests that time's passage is not a cosmic fact but a psychological phenomenon. Our brains, built to survive in a world of change, string together events in sequence. They give us the illusion of flow, of one moment leading to another. But the cosmos itself, viewed from outside, may be timeless. This idea unsettles us. We want time to be real because without it, loss is not loss, growth is not growth, and life is not a story but a frozen sculpture. And yet, if we accept that time is an illusion, new possibilities arise. Death, for example, ceases to be an ending. If all moments exist eternally, then the moment of your birth, your laughter, your love, your presence, all of these remain forever etched into the fabric of the universe. They do not vanish. They do not dissolve into nothing. They are part of the block, eternal and unchanging. In this view, existence is not a flame that burns and goes out. It is a constellation of points, always shining somewhere in the grand architecture of spacetime. Philosophers throughout history have danced with this tension. Aristotle believed time was a measure of change, inseparable from motion. Immanuel Kant argued that time is not an objective feature of the world but a form of intuition, a lens through which human beings perceive reality. Martin Heidegger pushed even further, insisting that time is inseparable from our being, that to exist is to exist temporally, projecting ourselves toward the future while anchored in the past. Each perspective points to the same haunting realization: time may not be out there. It may only exist within us. Yet if time is only perception, then what of the arrow we so clearly feel? Why does life unfold like a movie reel rather than a still photograph? The answer, perhaps, is that consciousness itself is temporal. The brain cannot hold the universe all at once. It processes in sequence, frame by frame, weaving experience into narrative. Time is the grammar of consciousness, the syntax of awareness. Without it, there is no before or after, no cause or effect, no self that persists from one moment to the next. Time may be an illusion, but it is an indispensable one, without which we could not even ask the question of its reality. Still, the doubt remains. If time is a construct, why does it align so perfectly with entropy, with the physical increase of disorder? Why does our subjective experience of time match the thermodynamic arrow so consistently? Is this alignment mere coincidence, or does it reveal a deeper truth, that our perception of time is not arbitrary but rooted in the very structure of the cosmos? Some argue that entropy is the bridge between psychology and physics, the thread that ties our fleeting sense of now to the vast machinery of the universe. Others suggest that even entropy may be emergent, another illusion in a cosmos that, at its core, is timeless. This brings us to the greatest philosophical riddle of all. If time does not exist, what does it mean to exist at all? Can there be being without becoming? Can there be existence without change? We are creatures of narrative, addicted to beginnings, middles, and ends. To imagine a world where everything simply is, without flow, without unfolding, is to confront a reality alien to human thought. And yet, this might be the ultimate truth of the universe, that the story we live is only a projection on the surface of something eternal, infinite, and still. The implications are both terrifying and liberating. If time is real, then we are trapped in its current, swept forward without escape. If time is not real, then every moment of us already exists, unchanging, eternal. Our joys, our griefs, our lives are not fleeting, they are forever. In this way, the question of time is also the question of immortality. Perhaps eternity is not found after death, but within the timeless structure of reality itself. Perhaps we are all already immortal, not because we will live forever in the future, but because every moment of us is forever preserved in the block of existence. And yet we cannot help but feel the flow. We cannot help but grieve what has passed and yearn for what is to come. Perhaps this is the paradox we must accept, that time may not exist, but it is the most real thing we will ever know. That it may be an illusion, but an illusion so powerful it shapes galaxies and souls. In the end, whether time is real or not may matter less than the fact that we live as though it is, and in that living we give it meaning. Imagine living your life again. Every smile, every tear, every choice, every mistake, replayed endlessly, repeating forever with no escape. This is the idea of eternal recurrence, a concept as haunting as it is hypnotic. It is the possibility that time is not a line but a circle, looping endlessly upon itself, trapping every event in an infinite cycle. What if the past does not merely linger in some eternal block but instead turns back upon itself, forcing the future to become the past again and again and again? The idea is most famously tied to the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche, who posed it not as a scientific theory but as a thought experiment, a spiritual challenge. He asked, "What if a demon crept into your most solitary hour and whispered, 'This life as you now live it you will have to live once more and innumerable times more'? Would you collapse in despair at the horror of repetition, or would you embrace the eternal cycle with joy?" For Nietzsche, this was the test of life's meaning. Could you love your existence so completely that you would choose to live it again forever? The thought is both terrifying and electrifying. Terrifying because it suggests no escape from pain, no final liberation from suffering. Every heartbreak, every humiliation, every loss would be endured endlessly. Electrifying because it elevates each moment to infinite importance. Every kiss, every victory, every act of kindness would echo eternally, woven into the endless spiral of recurrence. The smallest choice would matter infinitely because it would recur endlessly. But Nietzsche was not the first to imagine such a looping cosmos. Ancient civilizations too wrestled with cyclical time. Hindu philosophy describes the kalpas, vast cycles of creation and destruction where universes are born, die, and are reborn again endlessly. The Mayan calendar envisioned time as repeating cycles rather than linear progression. The Stoics of ancient Greece also believed in eternal recurrence, teaching that the cosmos burns itself to ash in a great conflagration only to rise again in perfect repetition, each event happening again in exact detail. Science too has flirted with the idea. Cosmologists studying the shape and fate of the universe have asked whether time might loop back upon itself. If the universe is closed and curved, expanding outward only to collapse back into a singularity, perhaps another Big Bang follows, giving birth to a new universe. But would it be the same universe? Would the particles fall into the same arrangements, producing the same stars, the same Earth, the same you living the same life once again? Or would the collapse scatter the seeds differently, birthing not repetition but variation? The loop of time in physics remains speculative, but the possibility lingers like a shadow. What if history is destined to repeat? The emotional weight of this idea is staggering. Eternal recurrence strips away the illusion of finality. We often endure suffering with the hope that it will end, that tomorrow will be better, that death will be a release. But in a universe of recurrence, tomorrow is yesterday and yesterday is tomorrow. There is no escape, only return. The same wars fought endlessly. The same loves found and lost endlessly. The same civilizations rise and fall, each time thinking they are unique, each time repeating the dance of history without knowing. And yet, there is a strange comfort in this idea as well. If life loops eternally, then nothing is truly lost. Every fleeting moment, every person we have loved, every place we have cherished, all recur again and again. They are not swallowed by oblivion, they are resurrected endlessly in the spiral of time. Death ceases to be an end and becomes a pause before the replay. Even the darkest sorrow carries the hidden promise of return, and every joy carries the guarantee of reunion. Nietzsche intended the thought not as a scientific claim but as an ethical test. Eternal recurrence is not about cosmology, he argued, but about how we live. If this life is the only life, if it must be repeated forever, then every moment must be lived with such intensity that you would will it to return. This transforms life from something fleeting into something sacred. Suddenly trivial choices are infinite choices. Each action is not a drop in the river of time but a stone thrown into eternity, rippling endlessly through recurrence. But there is another, darker implication. What if we are already living recurrence? What if this moment, right now, has already happened infinite times before and will happen infinite times again? The feeling of déjà vu, that eerie sense of reliving a moment, becomes not just a neurological glitch but a glimpse of the eternal loop. In this view, you are not simply moving through time but endlessly retracing your steps in a cosmic circle too vast to escape. For some, this thought is unbearable. The idea of being trapped in eternal cycles reduces life to a prison, stripping it of novelty and growth. If everything repeats exactly, then nothing is truly new, and the very idea of progress collapses. Why strive? Why create? Why struggle if the universe is a broken record playing the same track forever? But for others, eternal recurrence is liberation. If every moment recurs eternally, then every moment is infinite. Every gesture of kindness, every breath of laughter, every fragment of beauty is not fragile but eternal. To live is to carve eternity into existence, to make choices that will echo endlessly. This is Nietzsche's challenge, to embrace life so fully, so passionately, that you would will its eternal recurrence. To say yes not only to joy but to suffering, to love not only the peaks but the valleys, until you could declare with all your being, "Thus I willed it." Science complicates the picture. The second law of thermodynamics, the arrow of entropy, seems to oppose eternal recurrence. The universe is running toward disorder, not repeating cycles of perfection. And yet quantum mechanics whispers of probabilities and uncertainties, suggesting that within infinite time, every configuration might recur. The idea is known as Poincare recurrence. Given enough time, even a chaotic system will eventually return to a state arbitrarily close to its starting point. This is not a philosophical metaphor but a mathematical theorem. It suggests that in an infinite universe, recurrence is not just possible but inevitable. If so, then your life, this very moment, will recur, not once, not twice, but infinitely. Perhaps not in exact detail, but in infinite variation, infinite echoes across the vast ocean of eternity. You will walk these roads again. You will speak these words again. You will breathe this breath again. And so we return to Nietzsche's question, sharper now than ever. If you must live this moment again forever, would you curse the demon or thank him? Would you recoil in horror, or would you embrace the recurrence as proof that your life is worth living infinitely? This is not just a question of metaphysics, but of meaning. For in the end, eternal recurrence is less about the structure of the cosmos and more about the structure of our choices. To live well is to live in such a way that you could will the eternal return. To love life is to love not just the possibility of new beginnings but the inevitability of repetition. Perhaps this is the ultimate challenge of time, not to escape it, not to master it, but to accept its loop, to face the thought of recurrence not with despair, but with a defiant, resounding yes. Close your eyes. Feel the silence behind your thoughts. Time seems to move forward, steady and relentless, yet when you peer inward you discover that the experience of time is not the same as the ticking of clocks. It is elastic, subjective, deeply tied to the rhythms of your mind. Consciousness does not merely observe time. It constructs it. The seconds and minutes measured by machines are one thing, but the time you live, the time you feel, is something altogether different. It is not mechanical but psychological. It is not fixed but fluid. Consider a moment of joy, a summer afternoon, laughter spilling into the air, the world illuminated with golden light. Hours pass, yet they vanish in an instant. Now consider a moment of fear, waiting in a hospital room, the hands of the clock refusing to move, every second dragging itself into eternity. In reality, the same amount of time has passed, but to the mind they are universes apart. Consciousness is not a passive passenger on the river of time. It bends the river, stretches it, compresses it, even stops its flow. Neuroscience reveals that the brain is not a perfect timekeeper. Instead, it stitches together fragments of perception, assembling them into the illusion of a continuous flow. Studies show that when we perceive an event, our brains delay reality by a fraction of a second, buffering incoming information, smoothing over gaps. This delay creates the illusion of a seamless present. In truth, what we call now is a reconstruction, a story told slightly after the fact. We live not in reality itself but in the brain's theater of time. The present is not a single point but a window. For most humans this window is about 3 seconds wide. Within this span, consciousness binds together sensations, sounds, and movements into a unified moment. That is why a melody makes sense to us. The notes are heard in sequence, but the brain holds them together in a temporal frame, turning separate sounds into music. Without this temporal binding, life would be noise, fragmented and incomprehensible. The theater of the mind relies on stitching together past and present, weaving them into a living moment. But what about the past itself? Memory is not a recording but a reconstruction. Each time we recall an event, we rebuild it, filling in missing details, reshaping it in the light of the present. Time in memory is not linear but fluid, bending to the demands of emotion and meaning. A single day in childhood may expand in memory into an endless landscape, while whole years of routine collapse into a blur. Consciousness edits time like a film director, cutting and splicing, lingering on some scenes, skipping others, creating a narrative of self. And what about the future? Neuroscience suggests that our brains are prediction machines. At every moment they are simulating what comes next, projecting possible futures, preparing us to act. To be conscious is not only to recall the past but to anticipate the future. The flow of time we feel is a result of this ceaseless dance between memory and prediction. We live suspended between recollection and expectation, and the present is the fragile seam where they meet. This theater of time is not universal. Different states of consciousness bend time in different ways. In dreams, minutes in the outside world can feel like hours, entire adventures unfolding in the span of REM sleep. Under the influence of psychedelics, time may dissolve altogether, past and future collapsing into an eternal now, or expanding into infinite fractal moments. Meditation too alters temporal perception, slowing the river of thoughts until the present feels vast, timeless, unbounded. Trauma, by contrast, can fracture time, freezing consciousness in loops of replay where the past bleeds into the present. Even culture shapes the theater of time. Some societies view time as linear, always moving forward, never repeating. Others see it as circular, tied to seasons, cycles, and returns. Language itself reflects these differences. In English, the past is behind us and the future ahead. But in Aymara, an indigenous language of South America, the future is spoken of as behind and the past as in front, because the past is known and visible, while the future is hidden, unseen. Consciousness does not experience time in a universal way. It is shaped by biology, psychology, and culture, all weaving different scripts for the same theater. Modern science has probed the brain's timekeeping mechanisms. Deep in the basal ganglia and cerebellum, networks of neurons fire in rhythms that help regulate our sense of duration. Neurotransmitters like dopamine modulate this timing. When dopamine levels rise, as in moments of excitement, time feels fast. When they drop, time slows. This is why waiting in boredom can stretch minutes into hours, while moments of pleasure evaporate. Time is not an external law in these moments. It is a chemical experience, a neurobiological trick of perception. Yet the mystery remains: how does consciousness create the flow of time? Some argue that the flow itself is an illusion, a construction of the brain. The philosopher Augustine wrestled with this problem centuries ago, asking, what then is time? If no one asks me, I know. If I wish to explain it, I do not. He suggested that the past and future exist only in the mind, the past in memory, the future in anticipation, and the present in attention. Neuroscience now echoes this idea, showing that the experience of time emerges not from clocks but from the architecture of consciousness itself. And what of death? If time is bound to consciousness, then does time end when consciousness ends? To the dying mind, seconds may stretch into eternity, a final expansion of the present before the lights go dark. Near-death experiences often describe timelessness, an overwhelming sense of eternity compressed into a single moment. Perhaps this is the final act of the brain's theater, projecting eternity as the curtain falls. The enigma deepens when we ask whether consciousness can ever truly perceive time as it is. Physics tells us that past, present, and future may all exist simultaneously, frozen in the block universe of relativity. But our minds cannot grasp this directly. We experience time as a flow because that is how consciousness must function. Without the illusion of flow, we could not act, could not survive, could not exist as selves. Perhaps time as we know it is less a window into reality and more a necessary story, an adaptive fiction crafted by the brain to make life possible. And so we find ourselves as actors on the stage of consciousness, performing in a theater where time is both script and scenery. We live not in the ticking of clocks but in the elastic folds of perception. We are being stretched between memory and anticipation, between what has been and what may come, clinging to a fragile present that is always vanishing, always slipping into the past. Time and consciousness are inseparable. To be conscious is to be temporal, to live in the theater of moments, illusions though they may be. Whether time exists outside us or only within us remains a mystery. But in the end, the meaning of time is not found in equations or theories. It is found here, in the theater of the mind, where every heartbeat becomes eternity and every second becomes a universe. Imagine a night sky so vast and cold that even the stars have gone out. No constellations, no galaxies burning in the distance, no radiant Milky Way arcing across the heavens. Only silence, only darkness, only the echo of a universe that once was. To speak of the end of time is to walk into a realm beyond human comprehension, where not just civilizations, not just planets, but reality itself runs out of breath. If time is the unfolding of change, then what happens when there is nothing left to change? What happens when the last star dies? Physicists speak of several possible endings for the universe, each more staggering than the last. The most accepted is the heat death, also known as the Big Freeze. In this vision, the cosmos expands endlessly. Galaxies drift farther and farther apart, their light stretched into invisibility by the relentless expansion of space. Stars exhaust their fuel, burning out one by one, leaving behind corpses of white dwarfs, neutron stars, and black holes. For trillions upon trillions of years, the universe grows colder and darker until only a thin whisper of radiation remains. Entropy, the great law of disorder, spreads to its final victory. There will be no gradients left, no differences of energy to fuel processes. Without gradients, there is no motion, no life, no thought. The universe will become a still, frozen sea where time itself loses meaning because nothing happens anymore. But this is only one ending. There are darker, stranger possibilities. Some physicists propose the Big Rip. In this scenario, the mysterious force we call dark energy does not merely push galaxies apart but accelerates endlessly, growing stronger with time. The expansion of the universe speeds up so violently that it eventually tears galaxies apart, then stars, then planets, then atoms themselves. The very fabric of matter unravels. Space-time itself splits open. In the final moments, even subatomic particles are ripped from existence. Time ends not with a freeze but with a shattering, a cosmic scream as the universe is pulled apart at every level. Another ending is the Big Crunch. In this version, dark energy does not win forever. Instead, gravity eventually overcomes expansion, halting the outward rush of galaxies. Slowly, inexorably, the universe begins to contract. Galaxies collide, stars fall inward, the night sky becomes brighter as everything rushes back together. Temperatures rise. Atoms are crushed. In the end, the entire universe collapses into an unimaginably dense singularity, a mirror of the Big Bang that birthed it. Time itself may rewind into nothingness, swallowed by its own origin. Out of death may come rebirth, a cycle of collapse and explosion repeating endlessly. Some call this the oscillating universe, a cosmic heartbeat that has been beating for eternity. And then there are ideas more exotic still. Quantum physics suggests that vacuum decay, a sudden and catastrophic transformation of the very fabric of spacetime, could annihilate the universe without warning. In this scenario, the vacuum we inhabit may not be the most stable state. At any moment, a bubble of true vacuum could appear, expanding at the speed of light, rewriting the laws of physics as it consumes everything. There would be no warning, no escape. Time would end instantly, not with a whimper, not with a bang, but with erasure. For all their differences, these visions share a haunting truth. The universe is not eternal, at least not in the way we understand it. The stars we see above us tonight are temporary. The galaxies that seem permanent are fragile. Even time itself, which we treat as endless, is bound to an ending. If heat death is true, then time will fade into irrelevance as the universe grows featureless and still. If the Big Rip comes, time will be torn apart. If the Big Crunch returns, time will collapse into its own beginning. If vacuum decay is real, time may vanish in an instant. And yet within these doomsday visions a deeper question emerges. If the universe ends, what does that mean for time itself? Does time die with the universe? Or is time larger than any single cosmos? Some cosmologists speculate that the end of our universe may not be the end of everything. Instead, it may be a transition. A new universe may bloom from the ashes of the old, with its own arrow of time, its own laws, its own stars. In this sense, the end of time is only the end of our time. Beyond it there may be other times, infinite times, waiting to unfold. Even in the bleakest scenarios, life's imagination resists surrender. Some physicists and philosophers wonder whether advanced civilizations far in the future might learn to harness the dying energy of stars, to slow their consciousness, to stretch each thought across eons. They may build machines that function in the freezing void, civilizations surviving long after galaxies are gone. Perhaps they will migrate into black holes, finding refuge in their strange geometries. Perhaps they will escape into baby universes of their own creation, seeding new realities before this one ends. Even at the brink of cosmic death, the theater of time may yet find a way to continue its play. But the most haunting possibility of all is that when the universe dies, time itself does not merely stop, it ceases to exist. Without change, without events, without processes, the concept of before and after dissolves. What remains is not endless darkness but something we cannot describe, because description requires time. To imagine the end of time is to imagine the unthinkable, existence without duration, reality without becoming. Perhaps it is not annihilation but stillness beyond stillness, a silence so complete that the word silence itself loses meaning. And yet, standing here alive in this brief flicker of history, we cannot help but wonder what role we play in this grand story. Our lifespans are nothing compared to the cosmic scale, mere sparks in a night of endless centuries. And yet, through consciousness, the universe becomes aware of its own mortality. Through us, it reflects upon its own ending. Perhaps this is our strange purpose, to be the witnesses of time, to hold its meaning, however briefly, before it slips away. So when we look at the stars, we are not only gazing at distant suns. We are looking at the future of time itself. Each star is a prophecy. Each galaxy is a reminder that nothing lasts forever. But within that impermanence lies beauty. The fact that the universe has an ending makes every moment precious. The fact that time will one day cease makes the sliver of time we inhabit luminous beyond measure. The end of time is coming, whether by freeze, rip, crunch, or decay. But we are here now, in the golden middle, when the stars still shine, when galaxies still dance, when consciousness still blooms in the dark. This is our gift, our miracle, to exist in a universe not yet dead, to breathe in its fleeting light, to know time before it ends. And when the curtain finally falls, when the stage grows dark, perhaps that will not be a tragedy but a transformation. Perhaps the end of time is not an ending, but the opening of a door beyond which something unimaginable waits. To imagine the multiverse is to stand on the edge of comprehension and look into an abyss that stretches forever, filled not with darkness but with infinities stacked upon infinities. Our universe, vast as it feels, may be only a single bubble in an endless ocean of bubbles, each one a cosmos with its own stars, its own galaxies, its own laws of physics. And if the multiverse is real, then time itself as we know it may be nothing more than a local illusion, a parochial rule that applies only within the fragile bubble we call home. Beyond it, time may twist differently, or not exist at all. The idea of the multiverse is not mere fantasy, not the plaything of storytellers or dreamers alone. It emerges from the mathematics of cosmology, from the quantum shiver at the heart of existence. Inflation theory, which describes the rapid expansion of the early universe, implies that space did not inflate everywhere equally. Some regions stopped inflating and cooled into universes like ours, while other regions continued, creating more bubbles endlessly. Each bubble may blossom into its own universe, forever sealed from its neighbors by expanding space. If so, then we inhabit one universe among a countless multitude, adrift in a vast cosmic sea. And if there are many universes, then there are many times. In some universes, time may flow like ours, with a past, present, and future. In others, time may loop back on itself, a circle without beginning or end. In still others, there may be no time at all, only a static, eternal moment where nothing moves, nothing changes, nothing becomes. To speak of before and after in such places would be meaningless. Our familiar sense of time, the heartbeat of our existence, would not apply. This possibility raises questions almost unbearable to contemplate. Is our universe just one experiment among countless trials, one flicker among infinite variations? Are there other versions of ourselves walking through other lives, making different choices, inhabiting different histories? In one universe, you never existed. In another, you may live forever. In yet another, everything you know may be governed by alien laws, where gravity pulls sideways, where light never slows, where atoms cannot form. Each universe would carry its own arrow of time, or its own silence beyond time. Quantum mechanics, too, suggests a kind of multiverse. In the many worlds interpretation, every quantum event does not choose a single outcome but splits reality into branches. When you flip a coin, in one branch it lands heads, in another, tails. When you decide to speak or stay silent, the world divides into both possibilities. If this is true, then the multiverse is not a distant abstraction but an intimate reality, woven into every choice you make, every breath you take. And in such a vision, time is not linear but a branching tree, endlessly forking into countless realities, each as real as the one you inhabit now. But what then does timelessness mean in such a framework? If the multiverse is eternal, if it contains all possible histories, all possible futures, all possible variations, then perhaps time itself is irrelevant. Perhaps every event that could ever occur already exists, crystallized within the infinite structure of reality. In that sense, time does not flow. It simply is. Our experience of moving from past to future may be nothing more than the way consciousness crawls across a timeless tapestry, mistaking the thread it follows for a river. Philosophers have wrestled with this thought for centuries. Is time an objective feature of reality or only a feature of perception? The multiverse adds new weight to the question. If infinite realities exist, then perhaps every possible moment is already present. There is no past, no future, only a vast landscape of moments, each fixed, each eternal. What we call time may be only the path our minds take through this frozen infinity, like a flashlight beam sweeping across a mural too vast to ever see in full. And yet, for all its grandeur, the multiverse remains a hypothesis. We cannot peer beyond the horizon of our universe. We cannot step into the next bubble. For now, the multiverse is a story the equations tell us, a story of abundance beyond abundance. But even if it remains unproven, it serves a purpose. It stretches our imagination, humbles our sense of place, reminds us that the reality we know may be a fraction of what exists. In this light, timelessness takes on a new meaning. If universes without time exist, then our experience of time is not fundamental but contingent. We live in a world where stars are born and die, where clocks tick, where causes lead to effects, but that is only one way reality can be arranged. Somewhere beyond, there may be a universe without birth, without death, without change. A universe that simply is. And perhaps, in some sense, all universes are connected through that timeless foundation, as though time itself were a costume draped over something deeper, something more real. To contemplate this is to feel the limits of language itself. How can we describe timelessness when every word we use, beginning, end, change, duration, is soaked in time? Perhaps timelessness is not something we can describe, but only something we can gesture toward, like a shadow we see at the corner of vision, never fully in sight. And yet we return to ourselves. For all these infinities, for all these abstractions, we are here, in this universe, in this timeline, living lives bounded by seconds and years. Whether or not the multiverse exists, whether or not timelessness lies beneath reality, our experience of time is inescapably human. We wake. We remember. We hope. We are beings of time. Perhaps that is our gift, to live within the flow, even if the flow is an illusion, even if beyond it there is only stillness. But the idea of the multiverse also offers a strange kind of comfort. If infinite universes exist, then nothing is ever truly lost. Every possibility that could be is real somewhere. Every person who has ever died lives on in another branch. Every world destroyed is saved in another. Every love missed, every chance unclaimed, blooms in some other timeline. In this sense, time does not take from us, it multiplies. The multiverse does not end stories, it tells them all. Perhaps this is the secret unity between the multiverse and timelessness. In timelessness, everything simply is eternally present. In the multiverse, everything possible happens, eternally branching. Both ideas dissolve the linear prison of time. Both offer release from the tyranny of before and after. Both suggest that reality is far larger, far stranger than the narrow corridor of seconds we call life. And yet, as always, the final question lingers. If the multiverse exists, if timelessness is true, then what is the meaning of now? Why are we here, in this moment, in this universe, and not another? Why do we remember the past but not the future? Why is consciousness tied to this particular branch, this fleeting arrow of time? These are questions no equation yet answers, questions that may remain mysteries forever. Still, the pursuit of these questions is itself a kind of meaning. To wonder about the multiverse, to dream of timelessness, is to reach beyond ourselves, to touch the edges of the infinite. And even if the answers never come, even if timelessness remains forever beyond our grasp, the very act of asking makes us participants in the great unfolding story. Perhaps the multiverse is real, perhaps it is not. But the imagination it awakens is undeniable, and in that imagination we glimpse truths larger than ourselves. So let us hold this paradox close. We are creatures of time who dream of timelessness. We are inhabitants of one universe who long to glimpse the many. We are sparks in the darkness, imagining the fire beyond the darkness. And maybe that is enough. Maybe to ask the question is to be part of the answer. There comes a point in every journey of thought where language begins to betray us, where words no longer carry the weight of what we are trying to hold. The multiverse, timelessness, the infinity of infinities, these stretch the imagination to its limit. And yet beyond even these colossal ideas there waits something greater still, silence. Not the silence of absence, not the silence of nothingness, but a silence so complete, so profound, that it feels like the very foundation beneath everything we can ever know. It is the silence beyond questions, the silence that exists where inquiry can no longer go. We begin with questions because questions are our nature. From the earliest flickers of consciousness, humans have asked, why does the sun rise? What lies beyond the horizon? Where do we come from? Questions build civilizations, spark discoveries, birth stories and myths. They are the fires we keep alive in the darkness of uncertainty. And yet, when followed far enough, questions lead us into territories where answers dissolve, where the act of questioning itself collapses under the immensity of the unknown. To stand before this silence is not failure, it is recognition. It is the acknowledgement that reality is not an object we can grasp in its entirety, but an ocean we are adrift within. When we speak of time and its mysteries, of the multiverse and its endless variations, of beginnings and endings and the possibility that both may be illusions, we eventually reach the horizon of thought. Beyond it, words cannot sail. Beyond it, there is only the vast stillness that no theory can capture. This silence is not empty. It has texture, presence, depth. Consider the night sky. We can map the stars, measure their distances, analyze their light, trace their origins. And yet, when we step outside and look up at the constellations, what we feel is not data, not theory, but awe. That awe is silence speaking in a language older than words. It is the recognition that what stands before us cannot be reduced to numbers alone. In that moment, the question fades, and what remains is simply being. Philosophers across ages have touched this silence in different ways. The mystics of every tradition speak of it as the ultimate truth, a state beyond thought where the seeker dissolves into unity with the whole. The Taoists call it the Tao, the way that cannot be named. Buddhists speak of nirvana, the extinguishing of desire and illusion, revealing the timeless stillness beneath. Christian mystics describe the cloud of unknowing, where the soul meets God not through words but through surrender. In all these traditions, silence is not ignorance but wisdom, the kind that cannot be spoken. Science too encounters this silence, though it wears a different mask. The physicist who follows equations to their limit eventually reaches a wall. What came before the Big Bang? Why does something exist rather than nothing? Why do the laws of physics themselves exist? These are questions that no calculation can answer. They point not to the end of science but to its boundary, the place where the known opens into the unknowable. The silence here is not a void but a horizon glowing with mystery. And perhaps this silence is not outside us but within us. Beneath the chatter of thoughts, beneath the restless spinning of memory and anticipation, there is a quiet center. We glimpse it in rare moments, when watching the ocean stretch endlessly, when holding the gaze of someone we love, when listening to music that seems to open eternity. In those moments, questions fall away. We are not analyzing, not explaining, not striving to capture with language. We are simply present. That presence is silence. Why does this silence matter in the story of time? Because it reminds us that our quest is not only intellectual. It is existential. To ask what time is, to follow its riddles through physics and philosophy, is also to ask what we are. Are we temporary beings swept along a current we cannot stop? Or are we eternal fragments of something timeless? These are questions that echo until they dissolve into silence. And in that silence, perhaps, is where the truest answer hides. There is a paradox here. We search for knowledge because we believe answers will give us control, clarity, understanding. Yet the deepest discoveries, whether in science or spirituality, often leave us with less certainty, not more. To realize the scale of the cosmos, the possibility of infinite universes, the strangeness of quantum reality, is to recognize how little we can ever know. And strangely, there is peace in that recognition. The silence beyond questions is not frightening, it is liberating. It frees us from the burden of having to explain everything, from the illusion that reality exists to be solved like a puzzle. Instead, we are invited to experience it, to live it, to stand in awe before it. Imagine a future where humanity reaches the edges of knowledge, where we master physics so completely that we can describe every particle, every law, every interaction. Even then, even at that ultimate summit, there will remain the silence. For no matter how complete our descriptions, no matter how perfect our theories, the raw fact of existence will still stand before us, unexplainable. Why does anything exist at all? Why is there this instead of nothing? These questions are not failures of knowledge. They are doorways to silence. In this way, the silence beyond questions may be the ultimate teacher. It reminds us that humility is the ground of wisdom, that wonder is more enduring than certainty, that the deepest truths are not spoken but lived. And in living them, we become part of the mystery itself. Consider for a moment the possibility that silence is the final destination of all questions. That every inquiry, if pursued far enough, does not end in an answer but in a quiet recognition. The mystery is larger than the mind. If that is true, then our role is not to conquer reality with knowledge but to participate in it with reverence. The silence beyond questions is not the end of thought but the beginning of wisdom. So here we are, time-bound beings dreaming of eternity, building theories of universes and multiverses, reaching toward timelessness with trembling hands. And yet, behind it all, beneath it all, is the silence. It has been with us from the first moment a human looked at the stars and wondered. It will be with us when the last star fades, when memory itself dissolves, when all questions fall quiet. The silence is the thread that binds the story together, the ground on which the theater of existence is staged. And perhaps, in the end, that silence is not something outside us at all. Perhaps it is what we are. Beneath the layers of identity, beneath the stories and questions and answers, beneath even the flow of time, there may be only the vast stillness, timeless and whole. To touch that silence, even for an instant, is to glimpse the truth beyond the questions, beyond the need for meaning, beyond the illusions of beginning and end. In the stillness of that silence, nothing is missing. Nothing is broken. Nothing needs to be explained. It simply is. There is a thought that has haunted philosophers, mystics, and dreamers for centuries. What if everything that has ever happened will happen again? Not once, not twice, but endlessly. The eternal return is an idea so vast and unsettling that it can make existence itself feel like a looped symphony, forever repeating its notes in infinite variations. It is both terrifying and strangely comforting, for it suggests that nothing is ever truly lost, that every moment is woven into the fabric of eternity, playing out again and again across the infinite expanse of time. The German philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche gave the eternal return its most famous voice. He asked us to imagine a demon whispering in the dead of night, "This life as you now live it, you will have to live once more and innumerable times more, and there will be nothing new in it, but every pain and every joy will return in the same succession and sequence." At first the idea feels crushing. To relive every mistake, every heartbreak, every loss, without escape, without change, seems unbearable. But Nietzsche did not present this vision as despair. Instead, he called it the ultimate test. If you could embrace life so fully that you would will its eternal return, then you have achieved the deepest affirmation. To say yes to existence, knowing it repeats forever, is to love life in its totality. But what does eternal return mean in the larger cosmic sense? Is it only a metaphor, or could it be real? Physics offers strange possibilities. The universe, governed by laws of energy and motion, may not be a one-way march into entropy. Some cosmologists speculate about cyclical models of existence, where the universe expands, contracts, and is reborn in endless succession. In such models, time does not lead to a final heat death but to a rebirth, a cosmic return. The Big Bang then would not be the first explosion of creation but one of infinite cycles of creation and destruction, a heartbeat of eternity pulsing forever. And yet eternal return need not be literal to carry its weight. In a different way, we live it already. Patterns repeat in history, in nature, in ourselves. Empires rise and fall only to rise again under new names. Seasons turn endlessly. Life emerges, flourishes, fades, and is reborn in spring. Within each of us, thoughts and desires cycle endlessly. We are creatures of repetition, routines, habits, the rhythms of breath and heartbeat, the echo of memory returning again and again. Eternal return is not just the structure of the cosmos. It is the structure of our lives. To embrace eternal return is to accept that nothing is ever final. Death itself becomes not an end but a passage. If time is a circle, then every loss is also a return, every ending a beginning. Somewhere, somehow, every moment that we cherish is happening still, repeating across the infinite loop. The smile of a loved one, the warmth of a summer afternoon, the awe of standing before the ocean, these are not gone. They live eternally, recurring in the boundless cycles of being. This thought can bring a quiet comfort. Nothing is truly lost if everything returns. But it also challenges us. If every action, every choice, every word spoken will be lived again and again, then how will we live? Do we stumble blindly, repeating mistakes endlessly? Or do we take the eternal return as a call to live with intention, to shape our lives in such a way that we would gladly live them over and over again? Nietzsche's challenge becomes a question for all of us. Can you say yes to this life, not just the joys but the pains, not just the triumphs but the humiliations? Can you love it so completely that you would embrace its eternal return? This vision also transforms our view of time itself. We often think of time as linear, a line stretching from past to future. Eternal return breaks that line into a circle. The arrow of time bends back upon itself, making every moment both beginning and end, both origin and destination. What appears fleeting becomes eternal, what seems lost becomes recurring, what feels like progress becomes rhythm. It changes how we see history, how we see memory, how we see ourselves. Instead of striving endlessly toward a final destination, we are dancing in a circle that never ends. And perhaps this is why the idea is so unsettling. We long for finality, for closure, for resolution. Eternal return denies us that. There is no final chapter, no ultimate answer, no last word. Only the endless repetition, the cosmic wheel turning forever. But maybe this is not a curse. Maybe it is liberation. For if everything returns, then meaning does not lie in some distant goal but in the moment itself. The now becomes infinite, charged with eternity. Each second is not a passing fragment but an eternal recurrence, echoing endlessly through time. Think of the stars. For billions of years they have burned, died, and been reborn from their ashes. Think of the oceans, endlessly rising and falling, repeating their tides without end. Think of human love, passed down across generations, expressed in infinite ways, yet always the same flame. Everything is return, everything is cycle, everything is the eternal dance of recurrence. To live is to join that dance, to recognize ourselves as notes in an infinite song. And in that recognition comes freedom. For if we are bound to repeat, then the only true choice is whether we will resist or embrace. To resist is to suffer, to fight against the inevitable, to cry out against the wheel of time. To embrace is to step into the rhythm, to love what is because it will always be. This is the secret hidden in eternal return, to live not for escape, not for endings, but for affirmation. When we gaze into the abyss of eternity, the eternal return stares back at us, asking a question that no philosophy, no science, no religion can answer for us. Do you love your life enough to live it again and again, forever? The answer each of us gives becomes the measure of our being. Perhaps this is why the thought has endured. It is not a theory to be proven or disproven, but a mirror held up to existence. In that mirror we see not only the cosmos repeating endlessly, but ourselves. And the choice we face is not about whether eternal return is true, but whether we can live as if it were, whether we can love the life we have, embrace it fully, and in that embrace find eternity within the fleeting moment. For if every second returns, then every second matters. Every gesture, every breath, every act of kindness, every moment of cruelty, none are lost. They echo forever. To live with that awareness is to step into the eternal now, to see time not as something that slips away but as something that circles back endlessly, giving us the chance to affirm or deny our existence. And so the eternal return is not only a cosmic vision but a challenge whispered into the depths of the human soul. Do you curse existence for its endless cycles, or do you bless it? Do you recoil from the thought of living your life again and again, or do you embrace it with joy? The eternal return waits for our answer, and in that answer we discover who we truly are.